Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the reading room for another debate dissection where we examine all the latest and greatest debates from the internet and creationosphere. I've just coined that term, by the way. The creationosphere out there. Yeah, you're so jealous. But today we have the wonderful Ember, my co-host, as usual. Thank you for being. Oh, damn it! Everybody's a doctor now. All right, hang on a second. So yes, how are you, Ems? How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing. I just had a fun time over on Skeptic Haven. We were reviewing the new Trump movie. Wowzers. We did have a good time with it though, despite the heaviness of some of the topics. We did some good roasting.
Yeah, I was watching an ABC presentation, sort of a documentary, Four Corners, which Ian will know about. They do these just sort of very, very neutral coverage of Trump, and it was kind of depressing. Everything that I was watching, just depressing. But they were talking to some big names like John Bolton and Scaramucci and just tons of people.
Is it a good movie, Ember, Dr. Ember?
What's that?
You're talking about The Apprentice, that movie.
Oh no, it's called Trump 2024 : The World After Trump.
Sorry, when you said the new
yes,
Trump.
His name is in it twice.
Yeah, so I was thinking of The Apprentice as well. So that's the movie that's come out that's supposed to be a biopic that he tried to have banned, I think. He absolutely tried to
It is not flattering.
That movie.
Yeah. So the Apprentice is about his time with Roy Cohn and learning how to be a businessy con man. And the Trump 2024 one, that's evangelism and eschatology, and also Trump is the savior. That kind of shit.
Oh no, that is even more depressing. Oh dear.
But it's Christian nationalism.
Yeah, that's Christo-fascism. Nothing worse. But I do want to introduce the wonderful Dr. Ian Chen, who is with us, and we will be covering your debate today. How are you, Ian?
I'm really well, thanks, Dr. Mark Reed. The two doctors. Thank you to two doctors.
Yeah.
I have to say, when you did say your channel here reviews the latest and greatest, so I'm definitely the latest. Not sure if it's the greatest at all, but
no, definitely the latest and greatest. No, definitely the latest and greatest.
Definitely,
I always love your debates. But I'm glad you're well. And how did you feel about this one? How did you feel going in? What happened going in? You were sort of telling me a little bit about the start of it.
Yeah, so at the very beginning, so I kind of joined the StreamYard probably about 15 minutes before the actual debate started. Rocky Rock Hard Kent was actually already there, and he immediately when I joined, he said, okay, and so we've got to have some rules. I spent last night, watching the last two debates that we did, and we cannot have any more of these ad hominem attacks at all. If we do, the debate is over. And the thing I know about Hovind is he's a very prideful man. So that when you actually have him in the actual debate there, and there are people watching it, and he's got his audience that's in front of him as well, right? I reckon there would be zero chance that he would actually drop out of the debate because he's there. He doesn't want to look like so. So I just said yes, okay, no, I won't do any of those insults or ad hominem or whatever, just because I knew that once he's actually in the debate itself, he may threaten to kind of cancel the debate, but he's not going to do it. He's not going to look bad or weak in front of his. So that's kind of what happened. So, but to be fair, I think Donnie Donnie's in this difficult position where he has to kind of be that so he calls it jabs, which I kind of like. So he goes, oh look, he said, look, I'm sure there'll be jabs will be okay, just keep it to a minimum. So he was kind of like accepting of the fact that when you do get into the debates, this is going to happen. But it was just really Kent himself that kind of said he wanted this perfection.
I think he was more saying that because he knew that Kent Hovind would take jabs. Because as I was saying to Ian, like when Hovind says, let's not do ad hominems or let's not one topic at a time or any of these things, he isn't talking about his own behavior. He wants you to stop doing that while he'll just go on with it. And he does not see anything wrong with that. Like in his weird non-doctor brain, he just goes, no, but if I'm doing it, it's fine. But if you're not allowed to insult me like that.
You are right. And I think at the very I think as we kind of go through this, he actually was the first person that made the insult. Like I kept it a bit toned down until he made the first move, and I think he calls me an idiot. So I kept that one in mind because at the end of the debate, I said, okay, you called me an idiot. I'm going to use that somehow. So I think at the very end, I kind of, you know how he always refers himself to like Norwegian. He said he's done some sort of ancestry test, and he shows that his parents or great grandparents or something came from some place in Norway. Like he's made that kind of
Okay.
yeah, he said that kind of stuff in the past. So I kind of said something along the lines of, "Oh, your ancestry test can't, there's a village out there in Norway that's lost their idiot. So can you just let them know where you are?" So I try to kind of that he said to me and make sure that I give it back to him double sometime in the debate. So that's kind of what I always had in my mind. You want to insult me, that's fine. Anyone can insult anyone, but you have to insult someone back with finesse. That's the skill. Right? Calling someone stupid is boring. Calling them stupid in a creative way, that's fun.
Yeah. And calling them stupid and they think it's a compliment, that's the best of all, quite frankly.
Do you find he's really clueless sometimes, Mark? Like you say stuff and it just goes over his head, and you kind of find like he doesn't get things. He's not a smart man.
Well, I mean, there's sort of if someone's trying to troll you and call you names and get a reaction out of you, sometimes it is good just to ignore it and pretend like you haven't understood, because that will make them mad, kind of thing. But I don't know. I think that he does miss a lot. Everyone's a doctor in chat now. All right, doctorates for everybody.
We started a trend. I love it.
Oh dear.
We're the most educational stream anywhere in YouTube today.
So I made the Bogan logic thing. It didn't come out very well, so I will do something else to like put an emoji. I just want to reserve that emoji slot, which I made it. So congratulations, everybody! We got a new emoji. So I'm going to do an emoji. That's rationality, baby. And that's going to be my new emoji because that's what the people voted on. But are we ready to go and see the brilliant Dr. Ian Chen against Dr. Kent Hovind, moderated by Dr. Donnie Badinsky?
Yes, let's go.
Ian Chen, let's start with you. Been a little while since you've been here. If I remember correctly, the last time you were here was for your debate with T-Rock. I think it was on dinosaurs. It was a good debate. It was a comprehensive debate on the topic. So, Ian, how have you been since then?
Just checking. You can hear me okay? Everyone can hear me?
Yes, you're coming in good.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, so look, my name is Ian. And I didn't really...
I love that, like, Kent Hovind is just showing his, like, highlighting where he is kind of thing, and on Rumble kind of stuff. Yeah, go back to Rumble, seriously. TikTok. Yeah, no,
he's on TikTok now? Damn it.
Dr. Ken Hovind is a presence on TikTok. Yeah, good one, mate. Like, good on you.
Wowzers.
I don't know, man. Seriously.
Debate 370.
370.
Except to kind of say that it is a third debate with Kent. I think it's an annual. This is going to be an annual thing. If we do a fourth one, I don't know, but it's been an annual occurrence so far. We had our first one back in, I think 2022. We had one last year, and obviously this is our third one. And I do have to say, I think Donnie, you've told me that each of the debates that Ken and I have had has been, getting stronger and stronger. And I think the second one, Ken, that we had last year is one of Donnie's top viewed debates. So I'm hoping that this third one is going to smash that. And if anything, I hope we just have fun, even though Ken and I will disagree and probably disagree very strongly. At least we're going to have fun about it. So that will be good. So look, I don't have much of an introduction or an opening, but that's it for me.
Dude, I love how you've just disarmed him here. Like, let's just have some fun. And that's really, if I know you, Ian, that's really what you're after, is just have some fun. And yes. I appreciate that, mate. I really do. Like, that's hilarious.
You know what's kind of interesting? I've never had a debate review done, but I'm not even looking at myself or even really listening to what I'm saying in this actual debate. This is probably the first time I'm actually looking at Kent. So I'm just looking at his expressions when I'm just saying, and he's kind of smiling, and I can see where you kind of got that disarming kind of perception from as well, because he seems to be fairly, calm or happy. But it's the kind of like I wasn't even looking at him. Like I was either looking at my slides, but I wasn't really looking at him when I was doing debate. So it's kind of interesting when you do this review, I get to see his expressions, and I kind of really want to know how those expression changes as I kind of get a little bit more insulting going forward. That will be fun.
Yeah, and disarm him first off. I mean, the thing is, like, he's so, like, people with egos the size of his are so easily manipulated by that kind of thing. Like, you know, they're all the same. They just want to believe what they want to believe, and sure, let them believe it. You know, there's like we try to take apart these debates so we can sort of tell people how to address them, tips, tricks. You know, how to engage with somebody. Some person like narcissistic, like Kent Hovind, and there's a lot to be said about Sun Tzu's Art of War. You know, like, if you are strong, make yourself look weak, and if you're weak, make yourself look strong. Like, it's all about sort of throwing them off. And you know, you do that beautifully, because he never takes you seriously, and on the end of it, he really should have. It's actually really funny.
Well, he said he looked through my last couple of debates, so I would have thought.
I don't. Look, Ken Hovind, I don't believe a word he says when he says he goes back and looks up this
true.
or looks up that. He never does that.
That is very true. Yeah.
Done research, okay?
Yeah, I'll look into ERBs. I'll look into it. Yeah.
All right, Ian, appreciate that. Yes, I think this is going to be a lot of fun. Your first 2 rounds, people enjoyed, highly viewed, and definitely very engaging debate. So round 3, I'm sure, should be very good. I'm excited for this. Common descent, good topic. And okay, Kent, great to have you back as well. Kent, tell us, how have you been? Last time you were here was for our open mic challenge last week. Lots of fun as always. So Kent, how have you been since then? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you. Good to be on here again. My name's Kent Hovind. I've been a Baptist preacher almost 51 years now. Been a child of God for almost 56 years. February will be my birthday into God's family. When I got born again, became a child of God.
Is this weird to anybody else? I've been a child of God for that. Okay.
Yeah, weren't you always, according to your beliefs? Like, I know he means it like metaphorically. That's when he did the whole born again thing that they like to do. But aren't you always a child of God? Isn't everybody a child of God under his mythology?
Yeah, and doesn't your soul exist before you're born? Is
right? That... You're fearfully and wonderfully made.
Okay. Kent was soulless before his baptism. Yeah, left-hand Jedi. That's what I'm reading from that. I don't.
It's
fair. Very weird. Yeah.
I believe the Bible is true. I believe evolution is the dumbest and most dangerous religion, and it's nothing but a religion. You have to believe in evolution.
Like the Bible.
No scientific evidence for evolution. I think it's the dumbest and most dangerous religion in the history of the planet.
This is about you, Ken. I don't like. This is the thing. Like, he immediately starts off, you know, about you, and then insults the other side. Really, you know,
he started it.
Yeah, no, I get you. This is implicit insult to anybody that believes the science, basically, which is just ridiculous. And the whole thing is, well, no, I think a dumber religion is, you know, one where there's talking snakes and talking donkeys and things like that. But, you know, Dr. Ian is far too magnanimous to put that in his, you know, about me section of the debate.
There's no reason to believe you're related to a banana and a potato and an earthworm. If you wish to believe that, that's fine, but they shouldn't call it science. I did teach high school science and math 15 years. This will be debate number 370 for me tonight. And thank you, Ian, for coming back. So I will defend the position that the Bible is literally true and scientifically accurate. God said, I'm hearing something there. God said they'll always bring forth after their kind. Humans always make baby humans. There are simply no exceptions. If you wish to believe something other than that, you can believe all you want. But my position is that's not science.
Is it just me, or is he talking even slower than usual? I don't have it on.
Definitely. He seems distracted.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, he's had quite a few mini strokes, so who knows?
And rattlesnake encounters.
Yeah, that's
it's a slow down.
Well, obviously you're not a true Christian, because the Bible says in Mark that they can handle snakes without getting poisoned. So,
That's true.
Not a true Christian, apparently.
They make these crazy family trees and put them in our textbooks and say, oh, yeah, look at this, boys and girls, humans related to, spinach. Drawing a line on paper is not evident. It's not scientific evidence. There's no reason to say that humans are related to ostriches. I mean, if you wish to believe that, that's fine.
Has he started the debate, or is this just the about him section?
He goes on for another 10 minutes, I think, from memory.
Really?
Love it.
Yes, it was supposed to be introduction, and he basically uses it as a launch pad to his own.
Why isn't Donnie just saying, hey,
that is his introduction, though. Like, he has nothing to say except, you believe you're related to a strawberry. Buy my DVDs.
Left-handed Jedi is on fire today. Can't take him slides. Oh, I like that.
But nobody's ever seen an ostrich produce a non-ostrich. It's simply not science. So I admit the Bible is my belief.
Oh, he's veering very close to emus there. And a good question is why do emus have these useless arms that hang by their sides and do absolutely nothing is a good question. It's a very difficult question to answer. Very pretty.
God created the world. They didn't see it. I can't prove it scientifically. The only other alternative is nobody created the world, and they can't prove that scientifically either. So my position is both creation and evolution are religious. Why are we all paying for one religion to be taught? That should be stopped. Okay.
All right, Ken, thank you for that introduction.
Thank you for that irrelevant crap in your introduction. Thank you. Wow. He's really keen to debate you, Ian. He wants to get at you. Look at him. He's jumping the gun there.
Well,
yes. That is true. That I've definitely noticed that, Mark. And this third debate, he actually went out harder than he has in the first two. So maybe he actually did see parts of the first couple of debates we did, but he's actually kind of launched off the gate pretty fast here.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
What were you going to say, Ember?
Oh, I think that doing that whole shtick, that's like his authentication thing. That's how you know it's really him and not just an AI projection of Kent.
Oh, okay. It's a qualification thing. Gotcha.
Yeah. Appreciate the intros from the both of you, Ian and Kent. So let's go over the format a little bit. What we're going to be doing is giving each debater tonight, Ian and Kent, 10 minutes to set the foundation for what's going to be discussed. They can use the 10 minutes however they'd like to engage the topic. The exact question we're interacting with tonight is this.
Yep.
Because common descent explained
here for a second, Mark. So so this is what Donnie was saying. So as I kind of said, I dialed in 15 minutes before the debate started, and he laid out the kind of format of the rules. And I said, look, I'm not really interested in a 10-minute presentation, and then Kent does a 10-minute presentation. So what I kind of wanted to do is I'm going to ask Kent some questions. I might present a few things that kind of supports what I'm going to say. Then I'm just going to ask Kent a series of questions. He can answer it, and we'll just take it from there. And that's why kind of Donnie says here, and that's why he kind of modified it so that when he said you've got 10 minutes each, use the 10 minutes however you want to use it. And so you'll see that Kent has his full 10 minutes of slides. And whilst what I try to do is basically just maybe put a slide up and kind of ask Ken a few questions just to kind of clarify. And I kind of don't want to kind of skip, but I think I might give a bit of a background as to what I was trying to do in this particular debate. So one of the things, the whole point of me doing this debate is to kind of really kind of get under Kent's skin. And I try to think of some arguments that, like Mark, you've argued with him about ERVs, you've argued with him about all the science stuff. So I kind of thought, look, I'm not very strong in science. I'll leave the science to the more capable people like Grayson, to Mark, Erica, Dapper Dino, and all those kind of people who are probably much more educated in the science than I am. But what I tried to find was something a little bit different. And so in this debate, I try to argue Kent's specific points around you all came from rock. The fact that I try to argue that the Bible actually supports evolution, because I knew that these were the points that will kind of really get under Kent's skin. And to do that, I needed him to kind of agree to a set of principles, which is things like KJV version is the best version of the Bible. Things like Genesis should be read literally. So things that he has said in the past, I needed him to kind of agree to that in the actual debate itself, so I can pull my point. So you'll see that is the kind of format of what I've been trying to do in the debate. Get him to agree with these points and then lead to a conclusion. But I thought I'd give a bit of the background first.
I think we were all given a schooling in what how you can use that sort of Socratic method to your advantage by Mr. Anderson, who is an incredible who absolutely pinned him down and gave him a good old spanking on evolution. And he's not even a biologist; he's just a lawyer. And I think we're all shown the way that you can use questions. And recently, Dr. Dan Cardinal was in a room with him, asked him some very basic questions on evolution, and he had to concede that he didn't know what Dr. Dan's was talking about. He doesn't know the science at all.
I'm shocked.
Which was incredible. Oh, Donnie's in chat. Welcome, Donnie. Just to all the mods, Donnie's cool. Don't just be mean to Donnie at all, because he's very polite and respectful to us in the chat. No, he is. He absolutely is. I've been in his chat arguing with people, and he's let me go. I think that we should, show him the same amount of respect. But sort of, we have people like Dr. Dan Cardinal going in there, and there was actually Sam, Redefine Living, who said the quiet part out loud, which was like, Kent's not going to understand what you mean by these terms. And it's like,
yes,
well,
remember.
They're basic terms, so yeah.
Taught science for 15 years, okay?
Well, there's a big difference between understanding sort of basic biology and understanding, evolutionary biology at a, doctorate level. It's a big difference.
I suppose. But
I understand basic biology. I don't, I would never, like when I had Dr. Cardinal's paper. Have you guys read it? It's like the paper on taking apart Stanford's math on the genetic entropy issue, right? And I'm reading through it and I'm finding, I can understand it. Get to the math, nope, no idea.
I have not seen it, but I mean,
I'll send it to you at some point.
Stanford is just, my goodness. Like his gene gun,
yes,
is a wonder, but it's like he left his brain in the lab at that time, because the stuff he's put out since, it's like, I don't know. It's like, you look at the two papers, like a new paper versus the research that went into the development of the gene gun. And it's like, before he was writing in freaking C++, and now he's scribbling in the corner in crayon. I'm like, my dude, what happened to you?
One thing that I find interesting about the Stanford thing is, I think creationists like to kind of say, they like to say, look, he's invented the gene gun, so ergo he's very knowledgeable, and therefore creation is correct. So they like to kind of point to what he's done. But if you actually look at the timings that Dr. Stanford himself has said, the gene gun, so he went from, I think, an evolutionist to an old Earth creationist to a young Earth creationist. So that's been his progress. But if you look at the timings from Dr. Stanford himself, the time when he invented the gene gun was when he was actually transitioning to an old Earth creationist. It was only like several years after he became a young Earth creationist. So if I was a young Earth creationist, I wouldn't be pointing to the fact that he invented the gene gun as some sort of support for young Earth creationism, because I'd be saying, well, his intellect for doing that obviously was happening when he was closer towards the theistic evolution kind of side. And obviously, as you kind of pointed out, Mark, ever since he became a young Earth creationist, he hasn't put out any more papers or anything since then. So there's obviously been what I see is a bit of a decline on what he's actually achieved. And that kind of maps pretty strongly, it correlates really strongly with the fact that, his belief from a old Earth to a young Earth. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, actually, you touch on a really interesting phenomenon that I think would be worthy of study at some point, because, as you know, there are a number of scientists who've made a similar leap, like Georgia Purdom, geneticist who now works for AIG, Jason Lyle, a bunch of others, where they're doing good work, and then they become creationists, and their brain falls right out of their heads. And I feel like there's a strong correlation that could be scientifically investigated.
Well, I just want to sort of say that even if somebody believes in creationism and is doing work like the gene gun, right? What you've got to remember that even in investigation into things, people can stumble across stuff, even if their hypothesis completely and utterly fails. For instance, Wi-Fi, right? Do you know the origin of Wi-Fi, Dr. Ian Chen?
Elucidate me. I'm sure you know.
Do you know which country came up with Wi-Fi?
our country, of course. So
yes,
every Aussie knows that.
Yeah, CSIRO, the Commonwealth Scientific Institute for Research, basically the CSIRO, basically the premier scientific institution. They were looking for microscopic black holes by sending out signals, and they realized that, well, they didn't find any microscopic black holes for a start. You know, that was totally, but they realized that they could pick up the signal somewhere, and that could possibly transmit data. And so that's the origin of Wi-Fi. They were absolutely failed in their effort to find microscopic black holes. So even though they were onto something that was, you know, a total failure, we still came out with something on the end. The problem is that we don't get anything like this from creationists, you know, like apart from the gene gun and things like that.
So how many microscopic black holes do you think Ken has in his head, Mark? If we were to point that technology in his head, how many do you think?
Look, I think there's one, but it's not microscopic.
Alas. You know, I used in school, I used to get accused of having a black hole in my head because I knew so much about space, and whenever I learned something, it could never escape. I'm like, you know, that feels like an insult, but it also kind of feels like a compliment.
the amount of crap that Dr. Kent Hovind says, he's got at least another 2 more brown holes as well.
Okay.
One at the top.
Leave that alone.
The origin of species. And so Ian Chen takes the affirmative, Kent takes the negative. Therefore, Ian, we are going to hand it over to you. And you have 10 minutes to help us set the foundation for tonight. Go ahead.
Okay, so let me share some slides. How do I do this?
As you're sharing screen, I'll let the audience know as people come into the live chat, we are going to be having an audience Q&A. That'll be once we're done with the main portion of the debate after the closing statement. So please, if you got a question, do your best to tag me.
Oh, yeah, I cut out the Q&A. I just wanted to see the debate. So I'm not sure if anything really interesting. I can grab the original footage if we do want to do the Q&A, but I don't think it's, yeah.
At Donnie or at Standing for Truth. And let me know who the question's for, Ian or Kent. We'll have some fun with those. Ian, I see your slides up now. Looks like you're good to go.
Okay, great.
Common descent clash.
Yes, yes. So look, I think I put a couple of pictures here online on screens. This hopefully kind of helps articulate both mine and Kent's position. The one on the left there is obviously what evolution says, and that's you know, we all share a common descent, right down to what we call Luca, or last universal common ancestor. And the kind of diagram on the right is essentially, I mean, it may not be 100% accurate, but it's essentially what Kent believes, that there are certain classes, kinds, whatever you want to call it, of animals. They're all specially created, and none of them are actually sharing common ancestry between.
Is that a protist down the bottom? That's a protist. Oh, no, the green one's a protist. So he calls it an amoeba, but it's really a very, very sort of basal protozoa kind of thing. Like it isn't even, so that would probably be a protozoa down the bottom, right?
Yeah, it'd be some sort of single cell. Yeah.
Yeah, but this isn't even like the origin of plants as well. You notice there's no plants on there. Protozoa is obviously an animal, you know, so this is just one kingdom basically.
Yep. No, you're right. You're right. I picked it because of the kitty kind of illustrations. I picked it for that to simplify the kind of thinking that everything goes into one common ancestor. But typical Mark in his science-minded brain, you've just picked it all apart in 2 seconds. So I've got to be very careful when I do anything like this with you. It's scientific inaccuracies.
No, it's totally fine. It's totally fine, and it serves the point. I do like that you're using slides, and you know, sort of, it's sort of saying like, oh, well, these sort of, you know, they're you know, individual, probably, you know, clades basically along the bottom here. That's totally fine. It's not a problem at all. But I do like that you're using slides and presentations. I always like that.
So this is just a kind of visual diagram as to what you're quite a visual person, are you? You're kind of visual kind of person, like you look at slides and digest information that way.
I'm just very aware at how people disseminate information. If you just talk to people, they're not going to disseminate as well as if you show slides or use other aids in order to get your point across. And this has been well noted in everything from teaching to corporate presentation to everything. Even if it is just a picture association, it just basically focuses people's concentration. You know, nothing wrong with talking, but talking alone is never better than talking and presenting visual aids as well.
Yep. Both Kent and I believe in how different they are. Okay, the slides coming through. Okay, Donnie. Yep.
Yes, they look good. Ian.
Yes.
Yeah, they look good.
Thank you, Donnie. All right, so this isn't my wife. I'm sorry. Did I say that right? I always like to start with a Kent joke. Kind of a bit of a homage.
I stuffed that one.
And you look.
I stuffed that one.
Yeah. No, that's okay. That's okay. But you look so happy to be with her, honestly. No, I'm joking. Like, I'm sure she's wonderful.
Well, she doesn't look happy to be with me, but she's happy to be with the plate of food there. You can see. So
that is a nice looking plate of food.
She looks a lot happier to be with you than you look to be with her. But I'm sure she's lovely, and it's really nice you've included your family life. I don't. That's awesome.
Too bad I stuffed out that joke. This isn't my wife. This is a picture of my wife.
Nice. This isn't my wife. It's a picture of my wife. Nice.
You guys know the origin of that, though? Do you know the origin of that?
That's a joke that Kent Hovind keeps making over and over.
Yeah, in his earlier days, he used to say it all the time.
Yeah. So yeah, you're doing a throwback to one of his. I mean, it wasn't that funny the first time you heard it. Just after the like fourth or fifth, you're like, dude, seriously, don't. Just stop. Seriously, stop. Get new material.
So look, I do want to say that, Ken, I accept your 6 stages of evolution. I have, in our previous 2 debates, have always accepted this. I want to kind of bring people's attention to our second debate, which was done last year. And that is when I showed evidence, or when I got Ken to agree that stellar parallax was a valid methodology to measure the distance of stars, and then proceeded to show him that using satellites, we can measure stars up to 30,000 light years away. In other words, the universe is at least 30,000 years old. Ken, you won like a baby and you ran, and you complained that I wasn't bringing evidence of biological evolution. So Ken, in this debate,
really, did that actually happen?
Yeah, it happened. So he ran and he started to complain. He said, Donnie, this debate is about biological evolution. We should stick to that topic. So he started to complain, and so I said, okay, that's fine. But I made it a point in the second debate to say I accept your 6 definitions of evolution. Therefore, if I accept it, I can bring all these evidences in. So I kind of noted the fact that he ran away, but let's listen to his response.
Yeah. Because he's the one. Usually, I'm the one going, "Hey, it has to be biological evolution, not not stellar evolution, not chemical evolution." Because usually, when people talk about evolution, that's what they're talking about, and we kind of all understand that. We all understand that, but
But that's the thing about biological evidence. He will flip wherever it suits him. So with you, he'll probably argue yes, because he has probably said, I think he said in debates with you, and probably alluding to you, Mark, as well, where he goes, atheists never touch the non-biological evidence.
Correct.
Whereas now with me, he said, no, you stick with it. So he'll flip to whatever suits him when it suits him.
Yeah, which is horrible, because I mean, I made a point of making it, it's always evolution on trial. I made a point of saying, hey, it's got to be biological evolution. And he still talked about, where the first cell came from, which is abiogenesis. So, and it's not like we won't touch it. It's just there's a lot less evidence for abiogenesis than there is for evolution. Tons less,
And that was actually playing in the back of my mind, Mark. This is the reason why, as you kind of go in and listen to this third debate kind of play out, that I'm trying to pull it back away from I'm presenting evidence and pushing into where's your evidence. So that's what I'm trying to do. So when I'm trying to argue the Bible supports what I'm saying, I'm trying to put it back in this kind of position. So because you're absolutely right, Mark. He never argues his point. He'll want you to argue it, and then he'll pick holes in it. That's his strategy. So you've got to try and pull away from that and put it into his worldview as much as possible. That's what I was trying to do.
And that's Dr. Mark to you. I'm joking. I'm joking. No, just call me Mark, please. Just call me Mark.
Where it's a sign of disrespect if I don't, Dr. Mark. So thanks for putting me up.
I get great.
Remember, Mark, your degree is every bit as valid as Dr. Hovind's.
Yes, I know. But I get great joy out of calling him Mr. Hovind and watch his soul die a little every single time kind of thing. Like I get great joy out of that.
But please stop saying atheists never touch your 4 stages of evolution when you're the one that ran away last year. Okay, so that's as a comment that I wanted to kind of say to the audience here. I can talk about any of Kent's stages, but I will focus.
That picture, I've got a clip of that picture somewhere.
There was a stream he did somewhere. I think the last few years where he was actually, I don't know why, he was crying about something. So I went and cut this picture. I think it was actually a thumbnail, and I can't remember where I got this from, but there's actually a video that's connected to this where he was crying about, you know, I think it was the topic was he was giving a lot to the Lord, and he was I don't pay attention to his sermons, but yeah, now there is a video out there where he's crying, but
I put it in a short of mine. If you want to see it, I can quickly do a short.
It would be hilarious. The audience will love it. The audience will love it, I'm sure.
Okay. I haven't done shorts for ages, actually, now that I come to think of it.
I know, we're terrible at this job, Mark.
Is this it? Share this tab. Is that coming through? Yeah, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
He's got the same shirt on, so it must be.
Time is the pacifier that keeps them quiet. Ask them time and more time. Ism should go on evolution. It's evolutionism. It's a dangerous religion. It's a cult. Okay.
Evolutionism. It isn't a religion. There's no God. Like, what's the God of religion? Where do they meet? What's this faith? Like, what are their tenets, kind of thing? Time isn't a god. It's part of space, Ken. It's not a god. Like, what are you talking? Nobody worships time unless you're worshipping time somewhere in the back room somewhere. That's not happening. So,
time is real, at least.
There it is.
Flow.
Yeah,
that's my short with him in. Yeah.
That's it. Yep. That's definitely
it. Oh yeah.
And I found a sign by. I was like, I'm not crying. You're crying. It's just so good, just roasting that guy. Ah, dear. But like, what are you talking about? What's your god? Time. Nobody's worshipping time. It's what?
Do you think if we worship time, it'll do us favors, like run faster or slower as needed or something?
Right. It's not something we worship. It's not a religion.
On the biological evidence today. And Kent, please stop saying that atheists never touch it, because I did, and I tried, and you ran away. I'll pause there in case, because I know Kent probably has stuff he wants to say about this. But Kent, you can jump in at any time. You can feel free to interrupt me. I don't mind. Okay, so all right, what I'll do is I'll kind of stop sharing, because I don't really need to show the slides for the next part, and then I'll need to come back to my slides later. So let me kind of stop sharing. Is that the stop sharing button? That works? Okay, excellent.
Yeah, you're good.
So Kent, before I start, I think I want to make sure that we are using common terminology here, and that we understand each other's positions, or at least the audience understands each other's positions. So I'm going to ask you a couple questions. These questions are nothing new, Kent, and you have confirmed this multiple times in your 370 odd debates. So that's quite a lot of debates, Kent, I have to say. So you have confirmed this many times throughout your debates in the past. So let me start with a couple questions to you, Kent. Can we assume that when you quote from the Bible, for example, when we are going into a discussion onto what a kind is, you will be quoting from the King James Version of the Bible? Is that something that I can assume? Okay, I think you might be on mute, but I see you nod your head, so that's great. Okay. And is it, in your opinion, that the reason why you use the King James Version, because I can use several different versions when to kind of help my case as well, but is it in your opinion that the reason you use the King James Version is that it is the most accurate or the perfect word of God, and that there are no contradictions, and if there are any contradictions in other Bible versions, those Bible versions are incorrect, but the King James Version is the correct version? Can I assume that?
This is correct, but you're doing the same thing you did last year. You're going to spend an hour not getting to the topic. Where's the evidence for common descent?
Yes, I did that last year, kid.
So what are you trying to lay the foundation? Sorry, go ahead, Emma.
I was just saying he remembered.
Yeah, maybe he did watch it. So what foundation are you laying down here?
Yeah, so my argument here is, if you are the kind of Christian that Kent is, where you believe the Bible literally, so I wanted to confirm that his literal understanding of the Bible came from one particular version of the Bible, and I knew this beforehand, the King James Version. And the reason why I wanted him to confirm is because when I quote from his Bible to prove my case, I'm using the King James Version. So that was the first point. The second point, as we kind of go through this, is not only must you use the King James Version, I wanted him to confirm that whilst parts of the Bible were poetic or allegorical or whatever, Genesis is the part that you must read literally. All right. So, and I've heard him say this before. So he uses examples like 6 days is 6 24-hour days. It's not, some random long period. So you got to read it literally, otherwise you're wrong. So the third thing I
he's a
wanted,
fundamentalist,
exactly, but only on certain parts of the Bible. Like he'll say, "Oh, this is poetical and stuff." It's not literal, but Genesis must be. I think the third thing I needed him to kind of confirm was, I think that might be pretty much it. So was that is the perfect word of God, that the Bible, the English version. Now keep in mind it's a translation of what, Greek or Hebrew, right? But he believes somehow, even though it's a translation, the English version is still the most perfect. So he won't, unless he has to go to the Greek versions or go to the Hebrew versions to read what that means. He'll take the King James version as that's the perfect word in English. So I just wanted him to confirm these 3 points, because I'm going to use passage from the Bible that basically says that my argument is, if you read these passages exactly as you agree to these conditions, then the Bible supports abiogenesis. The Bible supports evolution. So as we go into this debate, you can kind of see where my logic is kind of heading. But he runs away. He doesn't answer it at all. So anyway, you'll see.
Yep.
I asked you 40 times, and here you are talking about King James. Yes, I believe King James Bible is correct.
Yep. And it's important because it's important I highlight this, Ken, because I know that you will be talking about what a kind is, and I know that you'll be referring to the King James Version. And the reason why, and it'll become evident later, is because when I look at different parts or different versions of the Bible, it will say something slightly different. And I just want to make sure that we are aligned and that I am quoting from the Bible that you're quoting from. That's why this is important. I want the audience to kind of understand it as well. Okay, so let's delve a little bit deeper into kinds, and we're going to get there very soon, Ken. So in the past, Ken, you have given a definition of kinds. You have said that according to the Bible, if you bring forth, so for example, a dog gives birth or a dog brings forth a dog, but it does not bring forth a cow. So therefore, because the Bible says bring forth, a dog and a cow are 2 different kinds, because a dog cannot bring forth a cow, but a dog can bring forth another dog. So a dog kind and a cow kind. Is that correct? If I articulate that correctly?
That is mostly correct. That is
mostly correct. That's exactly what he believes. What
hedging his bets.
Yeah, he's hedging already.
Something coming, and he's hedging his bets. You'll see that Kent kind of does this a lot.
Yeah.
A leading question, though. We'll get into much more detail later, but go ahead. Yeah, cows always have baby cows.
Okay, and I agree with that. All right, so but I will also make a small allowance for you, because I know maybe I have the beauty is you've done 370 debates, and I have seen a fair few of them. So I'll make a small allowance. So today, a dog and a fox cannot bring forth. But what I will grant you is that if you look at a dog and a fox, they are so similar, and possibly in the past they used to be able to bring forth. So what I will grant you is, because of its similarity, and they are highly similar, that a dog and a fox are probably the dog kind, even though today it doesn't meet the definition of bring forth. So will you agree with that kind of concession? I've given you that concession.
Well, that's the kind of thing he never gets pinned down on. Are dogs and foxes the same kind? Dogs and bears the same kind? Different. He never gets pinned down on the specifics, because once you start to go into specifics, it all falls apart.
Yep.
I think AJ brought up sort of 2 squirrels on either side of the Grand Canyon that can't breed anymore. It gets problematic. So he really just is very vague about it. Whenever he gets pressed on, well, how does this kind thing work? He just goes to, the animals know their own kind, and I don't care.
And you and I know, Mark, that's what he's going to say. So there was a couple of reasons why I gave him this concession. The first one is, I just kind of wanted to kind of disarm him a little bit, because you can see from where he was going, he was starting to hedge his bets. He was like, he was starting, we'll discuss it later. I kind of agree. Like, he would not definitively say what he has always said in the past, that a cat and a cow are 2 different kinds, right? He was like, mostly, like, you heard him say it. So one of my objectives was just to disarm him a little bit. The second thing I felt was, if I gave him this concession, it would basically just stop his argument on this going forward, because he has this habit of kind of bringing up something that's not even related, but maybe slightly related as an answer to your question. So if I kind of just consider this point, I've kind of stopped that particular line of argument from his side. So that's the kind of 2 main reasons why I kind of said, let's give him this one. It's not going to be pertinent to my argument going forth, but it's a concession that will help maybe either A, disarm him a little bit before he gets the whack, or 2, stop any future arguments on this going forward.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
And I've said, because they visually look almost exactly the same, a dog and a fox can be called the dog kind, even though today a dog and a fox cannot bring forth. Are you okay with that?
Correct. The Bible definition of they bring forth was, in the original creation, they could bring forth. They may have diversified where they now cannot, like Great Dane and Chihuahua cannot. That's still the same thing. Okay.
So there is a level. So there's a level of similarity, and I'll grant you, where at least it's obvious. It's probably, we could talk about how obvious a dog and a bear or whatever is later on, but a dog and a fox is so similar, I'll grant you that they're probably from the same kind. So I'm glad we kind of agree there. Okay. And can I also assume that whilst the Bible has parts of it that are allegorical or potentially poetic, that when it comes to Genesis, that should be read literally. So, for example, and I'm referring to, let's say, your debate that you had with Hugh Ross. For example, when the Bible in the King James Version says God created in 6 days, it literally means 6 24-hour days and not some longer unspecified periods of time, which I know older creationists say. So what I'm trying to say, Ken, is do you agree that whilst there are parts of the Bible that are poetic or whatnot, Genesis is actually a literal account of history?
The creation was like 6 literal 24-hour days, correct?
Yeah, but more than that, it's not just 6 little days, it's the order. So when the sun and the moon came out, that I think I can't remember, but what day the animals, or land animals, the the sea animals, all that kind of stuff. So it's literal. That is actually how creation worked, and you need to read that literally. So okay, great. All right, so I'm going to start sharing screen now. So I'll present, I guess, the first part of the evidence.
Ian, I'll stop the timer as you get that ready. You have exactly 3 minutes left for your opening 10 minutes.
I like how you're phrasing these as concessions to Kent. Like, I will grant you this, I will grant you that, when you're actually like fencing him in. That's really neat.
Yeah, that was the point, because he has to agree to it. In all his 370 odd debates he's had previously, he's made these statements before. He's not going to back down on it. So I knew that was going to be his answer, and I'm trying to use his words to the audience to build into a story. So that was the point of this.
Audience, send in those questions, send in those challenges, objections. We look forward to engaging you guys. You're good to go. Yeah, go ahead, Ian.
Yeah. Okay. So, Ken, you have stated many times that evolutionary textbooks state that life comes from rocks, and I want to talk about abiogenesis first before we talk about the creation of life, before we talk about the common ancestry part of life. So you have stated many times that I, or you, evolutionists, believe that we came from rocks. Could you maybe articulate that a little bit? What do you mean by that when you say you believe you came from a rock?
Well, I show exactly what the textbook says, that the Earth began as a hot ball of rock 4.6 billion years ago. It cooled down and developed a rocky crust, a hard rock crust, and life came from the rocks. Earth formed as 4.5 billion years ago. It was a hot ball of molten rock. This is what all the textbooks teach, and this is.
Yeah, but the point is that just because it was a hot ball of rock doesn't mean that the rocks literally made life. Like we're talking about chemicals that were in the rocks. Like very, very strange to think that.
You notice when you're pressing him, Mark, he starts giving this longer explanation that is probably more in line with how we believe abiogenesis actually occurred. But when you debate him, his one throwaway line is, "You believe you came from rock." Like he takes a long process and just puts into this worst straw man I've ever heard, and comes up with that little "You came from rock." Yeah. So now he's trying to. You can see he's trying to weasel himself out. Like I look at this as he's weaseling himself out by giving a more lengthier, more accurate explanation.
Yeah.
My objection. Okay. Earth began as a hot ball of rock. Earth began as a hot, viscous ball of rock. It was still a hot, molten ball of rock. Thought formed 4.6 billion years ago. Earth began as a hot ball of rock. This is.
Hey, rock one more time, Kent.
And you.
Yeah.
Rocky Kent.
Atheists deny this, like Aaron Rod. Nobody ever said that. Yes, you do. Earth began as a hot ball of rock. And then 3.9 billion years ago, it began raining on the rocks for millions of years, and it made oceans. And in the oceans, somehow, this life came from the material in the ocean.
So why didn't life come from oceans?
Like if you're basically made of rock?
Apparently so. Like, when you have you have a rock there, minerals and chemicals from the minerals, like phosphorus and stuff. People quote phosphorus, like, yeah, it's a mineral, but you also have different other things involved, like carbon, and you have gases, oxygen, hydrogen. You have all of these different chemicals involved in the origin of life. Why don't you say life came from the atmosphere, or life came from the water, or life came from anything apart from rock? Because it's only one of the things that was involved. It's very strange.
It has to be
why, Mark,
from these rocks that dissolve.
Yeah, because that sounds more plausible than life. A rock gave birth to life. Kind of
look stupid, so he'll just say the most stupidest thing possible. Yeah.
To the water. So yes, you believe you came from a rock, and you should be proud of it. I don't know how you guys drive on the highway. That's your grandparents, for heaven's sake. But go ahead.
You should be proud of it.
The highway, that's your grandparents. What the hell? When you talk about straw men, it's almost like his straw men are so bad that you kind of just let them get away with it because no one's going to believe that nonsense. But, what the hell? like that's a straw man and a half. He's the worst for it. Absolute worst. Wow.
Actually, when he said this, what was going through my mind at that moment was in our very first debate, when I actually started to call him Rock Hard Kent, was I made a joke. I said, your actual Bible says, and this was more than Adam. So your actual Bible says that Adam was created from dust, and dust is just really, really small rocks. And then I said, I think I said something along the lines of, so whilst I was walking back home to get to this debate, I stepped on some rocks. I'm sorry I stepped on your cousin, Ken. So I made that little bit of a joke in the first debate. And then and then later on, I kind of said, oh, I know it's really hard to convince you about the truth of evolution. So from now on in this whole debate, your name shall now be Rock Hard Kent. So that was where it first started.
That's where it came up.
I wasn't sure whether, because he did say he watched a couple of the previous interactions. I wasn't sure if that was a bit of a dig back at me. I'm not sure.
Okay, can we hear everyone on the panel do their best? Hovind. Water.
Water.
We need water. Okay.
Water.
I'm very bad with Hovins. I can't do it.
Yeah, I'm no Dr. Josh.
Yeah, Dr. Josh.
Yes, he's great. He's great.
No one else can be Dr. Josh.
Okay, so yeah, put my slides back on, Donnie. So look, okay, so what I'll say here is this is actually what you say. So you are right. But you have never once shown a textbook that says that life came from rocks. What you show are a series of abiogenesis steps, where you show that there's a combination of water, rocks, and energy that show a transition between geochemistry to biochemistry. And then you kind of jump to the end and say, you believe that all life comes from rocks. So I actually think you're lying, Ken, because you cannot show me something that actually, a textbook that actually says, Luca, whatever life comes from a rock. But what you do show are all the steps that basically describes abiogenesis, but you summarize that to a straw man kind of argument that says life comes from rock.
Yep.
But what I kind of want to point out though is, and let me introduce you to Genesis 1:24 from the King James Version. And God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, cattle and creeping thing, and the beasts of the earth after his kind. And it was so. And remember, Ken, you said that we need to take Genesis literally, and you said that bring forth means to give birth. So I say to you, Ken, that it's not the evolutionary textbooks that says that we come from rocks. It is your Bible that supports abiogenesis. Your Bible is saying clear as day that all living creatures come from rock. So if I read this and I read, let the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind. To me, a literal reading of that is simple, that rocks give birth to living creatures, and it's your Bible that says that, not evolution.
Does that mean that the earth is the same kind as the cattle?
To me,
kinds.
Yeah, well, exactly. So to me, so I use the same passage a couple of ways, but in this particular part of the debate, what I said is, well, I've heard you say KJV is the best version or the most correct version. So here's KJV. I've heard you said Genesis must be read literally, and I've heard you say that bring forth means to give birth. Ergo, I'm reading this with those three kind of conditions in mind, and it's your Bible that says rocks, that you came from a rock. I just wanted to kind of show the stupidity of his argument by using the Bible to kind of show that. So that was the point of this first part of the debate.
So you're using the Bible to support the straw man that he's trying to make it abiogenesis, which is fantastic. And I've never, I don't think he was ready for someone to use the Bible as evidence for evolution.
No,
I don't think he was ready for that. And that's hilarious.
And as we kind of progress on, I actually show where the Bible supports evolution kind of going forward. But this was just to say the Bible says you came from a rock. You can't show any textbooks that says the same. But here I am showing you exactly the Bible saying the same that you've been accusing us of saying. Yeah.
Oh, so good. So good.
I love it. I love it so much.
Ken, please
explain. Yeah, same here.
Explain that.
Actually, before you do, Ken, note that down. That's a little bit over 10 minutes. What we'll do for the discussion, as we've been doing, Ian, is we'll give you both plenty of time to lead the way.
Go back and forth,
And I hate how he always has these slides up, trying to refute people, like in his slides and then his screen. It's sort of very annoying.
Can I ask you guys a question before you kind of go on, Dr. Mark?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Did I use any insults at this stage? Did I insult him in any way?
No.
Can you?
Not yet. Not that I've seen.
Keep that in mind, because then you'll hear him start the first jab, and from that point on, I thought, okay, well, I think I've been quite polite until you've made that first jab. Floodgates are open after that. So I just kind of want to point to the audience that's kind of listening into this debate review today that I thought I was being quite professional this whole time. So we shall see what happens when Kent wasn't, and how that basically goes. Basically, there's a little switch in my mind that kind of went, okay, if you're going to do it that way, we'll play it your way. So
that's fair.
Sure,
Yeah.
but I'd like to hear what Ken says, because and this is why it was important that we use the KJV, because this is from the KJV. Ken said, "Bring forth" means to give birth. That's fine. This is a literal reading of Genesis. I would love to hear your explanation of this, but I would say one of my evidences for abiogenesis is the Bible. The Bible, clear reading and clear as day, is telling me that rocks gave birth to life, or abiogenesis.
Okay, let's give Kat a minute to respond, and then Kat, jump right into your 10-minute opening statement. Go ahead.
Okay. The phrase "bring forth" can mean many things. I can.
You already agreed that "bring forth" was to give birth. You already cornered him in that earlier. That's beautiful, Ian. That is beautiful. He already agreed that "bring forth" meant to breed with another animal.
Ooh, awesome. What do you think the Earth mated with? Was it Mars? I bet it was Mars.
And the
it was it was Thea. Thea gave it a good rogering. That's what happened, and I will die on that hill.
I've always heard it called Mother Earth. So you would think Mars was giving Gaia the rogering. So,
yeah, maybe so. I do like the Thea thing, because I mean, the Earth moved. It rocked the world. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it did. Yeah, it did. And it gave birth to a beautiful baby moon. Oh,
that's right.
Forth out of the refrigerator. Okay, bring forth is not limited to create life. Okay, but when God tells the dirt to come alive, that is very different than the dirt coming alive by itself. Man can take clay out of the ground and shape it into a coffee cup and bake it in the oven and make a coffee cup out of clay. That's very different than to say the coffee cup made itself with no man involved.
So remove the who made themselves. What you just said, what your exact words was, the dirt come alive. All right, so that to me is, forget who made it. It could be God, could be Allah, could be whatever. It doesn't matter who made it. Your phrase is, the dirt comes alive. Ergo, the dirt gave birth to life. I mean, how am I reading this differently? I am reading this literally what the Bible's saying. So I get there could be different meanings, but you yourself said the dirt comes alive. Forget the mechanism.
God is capable of taking dirt and making life. The dirt is not capable of making life by itself. Man can take iron ore from the ground and do lots of things.
Getting irritated, isn't he?
But
yeah, he's getting really annoyed.
He does not like this.
No, he doesn't like this at all. And yeah,
by itself.
So how did God make life?
So. I was just about to say that. You should ask him how God did this, because we can describe how a person does it. How did God do it? Because as far as we know, he just spoke it, said, "Hey, Earth, bring forth life now," and it just did. Okay, but how does that work? Nice, Ian. I love it. I love it.
Oh, no, that's a miracle. That's amazing. How did the dirt make life? How did the soup make life without a designer?
All I can say, Ken, is when I read the Bible literally, that's what it reads to me. That
avoiding the question, Your Honor.
Is he preparing for his court date or something? What? This is something he's been doing lately, like going, "Oh, Your Honor," and you know.
Yeah, it's a Mr. Anderson response tick that he picked up.
Yeah, he really I think Mr. Anderson scarred him in a very real and tangible way.
I know. Somebody should tell Mr. Anderson. He might enjoy knowing that. He
really is acting like a lawyer. But see, the thing is that Mr. Anderson, he didn't appeal to Your Honor or anything like that. He just, did how he addresses people that are deceptive when he has to cross-examine them. Kent is just, it's not enough to pretend to be a doctor. He has to pretend to be a lawyer as well. Come on now. Seriously. Maybe
whatever he does, Dr. Mark, whatever occupation he does, he'll always do it better than the people that's studying it for 10 years.
Yeah. And yeah, it's plus he's the one dodging the question, because so he's just projecting what he's doing, because you asked him, how did God do it? And he's like, how did it happen on your side? That's not answering the question. You say miracle, how does that work? Mm-hmm. Right. And this is something I've tried to point out recently. You saying a miracle would be the same as us saying a natural process. And if you go, well, what's the natural process? How does that work? Well, what's the process of a miracle? How does that work? You can't just expect us to detail every single tiny thing about everything and then just give it was God as an answer and say, well, I've answered the question. No, you haven't. Any more than just natural processes answers the question. That doesn't answer the question, but neither does God.
Yep.
Okay, guys, let's just stay on track. We're gonna have a lot of time to interact and discuss the topic.
More later, but Ken, go for it. We'll explore this later.
Ken, we'll give you 10 minutes to help us set the foundation for what will be discussed tonight on the topic of evolution. And
do you think we're going to have any new stuff? Like, take your bets, people. Is there going to be anything new?
I wouldn't bet against that at all, Mark.
No, okay.
Common dissent. Ken, go ahead. You get 10 minutes.
Well, he covered quite a few topics as being, first of all, he did not run away at all or go away crying from his last debate when he said about the starlight being measuring 30,000 light years away. I said many times, if you go back and listen to it, that a light year is a distance. It's not a time. It's a distance. And if the star is 300,000.
So if light, okay, so here's the thing. If light has a constant rate of velocity, right? So if it has a constant, then the amount that it travels in a year is a distance.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the velocity is constant, oh, geez.
Uh-huh.
Exactly.
If car's traveling 60 miles per hour, and you say it goes for 1 hour at 60 miles per hour, it can't be anything but 60 miles. Like, it's not possible to be anything else. Dear, I just, wow. What a genius. Very stable genius.
Very stable.
Yeah, very stable genius.
Light years away. It could have been made yesterday at that position. And so I go through all this on my video number 7.
No, not unless you want to change c, which is the speed of light. You'd have to change that in order for that to be true. It would, if it was made yesterday, it would have to be traveling, what, 7.6 billion times the speed that we know that it does. So take that one up with Einstein, sir.
It would be a lot of blue shift.
Oh yeah.
So this is actually quite an interesting kind of response from Ken, because what he's saying now, does it sound like he's saying that God created the universe to appear old? Because I know some young earth creationists kind of reject that notion because they believe that God did not create the universe to lie to us, basically. So what he's kind of saying now is God created the universe to make it appear old.
Well, that's one of the arguments that the old Earth creationists leverage against the young Earth creationists. Like, why would God make a universe that looks old? Because that's deception, and God is not deceptive. So
never mind that the Bible disagrees.
But that's his argument now. He's basically saying, right, God may have made it look like that. I think that's what he said.
Well,
so
yeah. Well, it's kind of this argument that, hey, it looks that way to us, but it's just the way that God did it. For some reason, and I don't know why.
Mysterious ways.
So weird. Yeah, exactly. It's just, but this line of questioning gets you down some really terrible paths, like last Tuesdayism kind of thing. Technically, God could have created the entire universe with you in it and all your memories last Tuesday, and you would never know, or just 1 hour ago before the show started, kind of thing. Technically that could be the case. So it gets you into this really horrible place of not having any basis for anything. So how do you know God didn't just create you 2 seconds ago with all your memories intact? You don't.
Yep.
Well, so last Tuesdayism is one of the things that I came up with independently in high school before I even started learning about this shit. I was trying to resolve how the universe could be both billions and billions of years old and 6,000 years old at the same time. And the answer is obvious. You create it 6,000 years ago, and you have time extend forward into the present, but also retroactively into the past, effectively creating the 6 billion years from that moment 6,000 years ago. And I don't actually see a logical problem with it. There's if the world was made with our memories intact last Tuesday, that isn't a problem. I don't know why creationists fight back on that.
Well, it's because it sort of lends to the idea that the Bible isn't correct either. Yeah, I mean, I don't see a problem with that, except for, the arrow of time reversing, I guess. I'm not 100% sure. I get what you're saying, though. I get what you're saying. Definitely interesting. But you're really looking at a God that can do literally anything, right? So it's not falsifiable. You can't investigate it. It's just anything is possible, really.
Yep, any excuse. Ooh, and Joe got a new logo.
Yeah, Joe's logo is looking absolutely fly. I got to put it on the screen. Absolutely fly logo, my friend. Just fantastic. Yeah. I don't know who did that, but it's really good. If you did that, Joe, well done. And I need a new logo, by the way. Just saying. just trying to tap Joe for all his work. Thanks, Joe.
It's a distance. It's not a time. And the Bible says 17 times God stretched out the heavens. So if he made the earth and then the stars and he stretched them out, they could be 1 billion light years away and still be only 6,000 years old. How can you not get that? If I could take this pencil and zoom it at the speed of light over to Australia, you're confusing distance with time. Starlight might be measurable at 30,000 light years. It doesn't prove the Bible wrong.
For a start, you can't get that pencil to the speed of light because it would require more energy in the universe for a start. Like
details.
Seriously. Yeah, details. I don't know what he's trying to say. If I could move this pencil to the
that whole stretching thing doesn't make sense in my mind. So we know that. So I think one of the observations we've seen is that the further that we see out, the galaxies that we can see that's further than the galaxies that are closer, the ones that are further shows, I think, a Doppler shift that kind of shows that they're speeding up, right? So I think when he says we're stretching out, we're speeding out, but trying to shift something from 6,000 to what was it, 14.6 or 14.5 billion years. We should be able to measure that, just by looking at the Doppler shift of the light. We should be able to measure how fast that kind of shifting happened. I don't think it would be what he's saying, because he's basically saying it's almost instantaneous. We've created 14.5 or 6 billion years of expansion within 6,000 years, and ergo the shifting of light during that whole period, I don't think that's what we would observe.
Right. It'd be the same thing as the blue shift problem, but in reverse. The red shift would be so freaking intense. It just there's a horizon problem.
Yeah, exactly. What we observe is a shift in light that's consistent with 14.5 billion years old. We don't observe the shift in light as if that shift went from 6,000 to 14.5 billion. Does that make sense? It'd be a radical shift in light. So I don't think his thing kind of makes sense anyway.
And then there's also Hubble's law that would be violated as well. Galaxies, the further away they are, the further apart that they're getting, the faster they're moving away from us. That's the whole point. We know that the universe is expanding. There's so many problems with that line of argumentation. Not least of all, just basic sort of. What's the study of light called?
Photonics?
Photonics, yes, correct.
Yeah, I was expecting you to ask for like cosmology or cosmogony or something. I'm like,
well, just the way that light behaves. I mean, there's just the Doppler effect, how light behaves when it's being moved away as when it's being moved forward. It's very, very simple.
So no, I'm not running away at all. So I covered very clearly in my seminar. I've done it many times.
There are my DVDs.
6 different meanings to the word evolution. Cosmic evolution, the origin of time, space, matter. Where did it come from? You guys have never answered. Chemical evolution. How did all these elements come?
The Big Bang. There's been answers. We just don't know enough to be a theory. Like this is what gets me, and this is something I've run into recently as well. People go, well, you have no answer for where the universe came from. No, there's multiple different answers. We just don't know which one is correct, if any of them, because science doesn't just say, hey, my book says a thing, so it has to be that. We say, what's the evidence for it? So there's been suggested parent-child, there's cosmic egg was one. There's multiverse theory. There's string theory, although that's kind of on the out, but they're all answers. We just don't know if any of them are correct, so we don't go around telling people to believe it and give us money.
from hydrogen gas from an explosion. Hydrogen, helium, lithium is going to turn into iron and lead, and you can't fuse past iron. How did stars form?
We can, though.
We can fuse past iron.
Like a stellar core tends to top out at iron, but we get all the other stuff from supernovas. Yeah, it's rare, but in the greater universe, it's rare. Like 98% of all matter in the universe is hydrogen or helium. So yeah, that checks out.
And it's really cool because you can say that you were like born in the heart of a dying star, and that is absolutely true. Because your particles were, most of them, apart from the helium and hydrogen, were baked in a supernova. And then they became other planets, other stellar bodies. All of this is pretty well understood, but of course, strawman Kent Hovind,
you guys have no answer for any of this. You have such a wild religion. You want to start with the assumption that all these are they're just there. Like, oh, we just moved into the neighborhood. There was a house with $40 billion laying in it. So
we just want to start the assumption that it's there. Aren't they there? Aren't the stars there? I don't know what he's arguing here.
It might be an illusion.
I mean, so the way that science works and what Kent doesn't understand, science is about what we observe around us in the natural world. So yeah, we start with the stars are there. We don't make any presuppositions about them. Then we look at what can cause that to happen. He starts with the Bible is correct, right? And then how do I get that into my reality? We don't do that in science. We observe the world around us and then start to make induction from there. Like this man, it's just... So apparently the stars aren't just there.
Nope.
All set. No. Where did time, space, matter come from? Where did the universe come from? And then how did life get started? You guys don't want to talk about that because it's really serious. It is an essential part of the problem of your religion. So then we talk about macroevolution, changes between the different kinds of animals. And before we get stuck on what's the definition of a word kind, I think a 4-year-old can tell you that a dog and a fox are probably the same kind of animal. And if you put a dog and a banana in front of...
The funny thing was, he says, you don't want to talk about that. Your introduction, your opening had that in it.
That's when you know
he's talking about abiogenesis.
That's when you know he's got a script, and all he does is read his script, and he wasn't paying attention to what I'm saying because it doesn't evolve his script based on this new information. He's just going through repeating what he's always been saying in his last 370 debates.
Yeah. He is his own proof of no evolution. He cannot adapt. Well, he can reproduce, unfortunately.
Actually, I think I said that.
He is a boomer, like seriously. He will never change. This is the thing. He's been doing the same thing he's been doing forever, and he refuses to change.
I think in the second debate, Mark, I said like he said something particularly egregious. I can't remember what it was, but I think I kind of said, "Oh, I think you're evidence that evolution can go in reverse," basically.
Yeah, well, they kind of try to frame evolution as de-evolution, and that's not.
He's devolved. He's 100%
devolved. Yeah, it's not a thing. It's not a thing.
Same kind. I bet a 2-year-old could do that. Try it. Okay. I had a bunch of 5-year-olds once, and I showed a dog, a wolf, a coyote, and a banana. I said, which one is not like the others? They always get it every time. I've done hundreds of times. The banana. So I think you're completely missing the point.
I don't get what that's supposed to prove. I don't get what that's supposed to show. Yeah, we think that bananas are further removed from dogs and cats and other animals. One's a plant, one's an animal. We can distinguish between them pretty well by now. I don't like what is that supposed to show?
The other thing it tells me, Dr. Mark, is his audience are at that 5-year-old level of understanding.
Or at least Kent is.
Yeah.
Kent is, yeah.
Deliberately, I'm sure. So we do have no evidence whatsoever for the origin of life. But the debate tonight is, once life gets started, did it descend into all these different various varieties of life? I think anybody would agree there are quite a few varieties of life forms on the planet. Man has decided to divide them up into plant life, animal life, etc. And we have decided to classify them, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. The animals don't know and don't care that we're even doing that. Okay, it's purely a man-made decision to classify these creatures. The animals know what to look for. In our farm here, we have all kinds of animals walking around together.
Well, I think the important thing is that that's Linnaean taxonomy is just humans deciding to put them in certain categories. And that's been a problem with some of the way that things are categorized. Now, it's a lot more effective when we can categorize animals by their lineages, by their clades, and that starts to make a lot more sense, especially genetically. Part of the problem is that we put all these labels on them, and it's incredibly messy. It's insanely messy, which we would expect if everything was related. What we don't expect is if they all came from their kinds, is this messiness between species and genus, and something being part of this genus but being able to reproduce with this thing over here. Like it's a mess, which is usual of biological systems.
It's such a weird claim for them too, to stick to this multiple creation thing. Like they put forth this idea of a perfect God. Well, which is the more perfect system from a design standpoint? Individually creating a whole bunch of things, or creating one thing with the innate capability to turn into all the things? I don't know. The latter sounds more godlike to me, but I'm silly.
Don't even consider the chickens for a mate, and they don't consider the goats as a mate. Keep in mind, the chickens don't even know what they look like, but they know what to look for in a mate. The animals are smarter than most evolutionists.
Yeah,
I've seen chickens like
try to make with ducks.
Well, they can. Well, that too. I've seen a chicken raise duck eggs, but the whole chickens don't know what they look like. Like I've seen chickens like looking into ponds and shit, staring at themselves.
Hey, I would like to make an observation here, Dr. Mark, Dr. M, the two doctors. So this is technically his opening. So I was technically supposed to be spending 10 minutes on my opening, and he has his 10 minutes as his opening. And obviously I used my opening more of a back and forth interaction kind of discussion and question and answer. So the topic of this conversation or this debate was common descent. So you've obviously heard what is coming to the end of it, but you're obviously hearing his 10 minutes opening now. So he's had two choices here. He's either going to use his opening to rebut the questions that I've had, which he obviously hasn't done, or he's going to use his opening to address the common descent question. He's done neither. So he's not rebutted any of my question, nor is this 10 minutes, this whole thing around what the definition of evolution is, rebutting common descent. I just want to kind of let the audience kind of know that I don't actually think he's answered either question, either my question directly or the actual debate question.
No, I get that. But I think that really what Kent does is he basically just goes on common rebuttals. Like he doesn't really rebut anything in particular. He just does the common rebuttals that he has heard. So he just tries to set it up like, oh, they're saying this. And then he just strawmans what he thinks that evolutionary biologists say, and then rebuts that. So that's the idea of a straw man, is you're setting it up so you can rebut it effectively and easily. But of course he hasn't rebutted you, because none of this is our arguments. So, it's straw man stuff in the straw man again. Good old Scarecrow Kent. And Robin Webster gifted 1 readership. Thank you so much, Robin. It's great to see you. I hope you've been having fun at work. And it went to Jester, Lord of Shenaniganery.
Yeah.
Good hit. Wow. Robin the Sniper is back in the chat. That is insane. Okay, you just hit Jester. I'll tell them that next time I see them, Robin. I have to. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
They know what their kind is. Okay. Now if there's 500 varieties of chickens.
Really? You've never had a dog hump your leg? Kent? Does it know what its kind is? What happens there? This is something that I've said in multiple debates when he's brought this up. They all know their own kind. You won't get this trying to mate with that, but you do all the time. It happens. Sorry.
Most of them developed by man for a particular purpose, more meat or more egg laying or something, longer life, whatever they're doing. So man has selected slices of the already existing gene code and developed it into a cow that gives 280 pounds of milk a day, as the world's record I heard. But still a cow, and it would never survive on its own. But they took the genetic code that's already there to make milk, which is amazing. And they have selected that, and they get the ones that give more milk and more milk and more milk, and through many generations, pretty soon you get a cow that gives a whole lot of milk.
Now it's just describing artificial selection. That's just artificial selection. We all understand it. Sure. Now, instead of the person, imagine it's the environment. That's it. That's natural selection. There you go.
Yeah, it's one of our oldest technologies. Like right after fire and stone tools, we were like, hey, if we breed these two aurochses together, we can get twice as much milk or whatever.
Yep.
It's weaker in other areas, just like the dogs. They've developed 339 breeds of dogs, and they probably had a common ancestor called a dog. And you guys just don't get it.
Actually, it was called a wolf.
Details.
Yeah. Your original picture you put up is a very accurate one. There's a family tree of dogs. There's a family tree of cats. There's no roots that are connected down deeper in the ground. These family trees that you guys make are complete imagination. This is not science. You can say, we look at this, we've drawn a line to connect the amoeba to the human and the ladybug and the pine tree. That's not science. I wish you guys could have just admit it. I know that you're afraid to admit this is just lines on paper, because then you might lose government funding for your religion. And you know your religion could not survive without government funding, forcing it down kids' throats into public school. So this is propaganda. This isn't science. To say that the humans and the ostriches and the dinosaurs and the frogs and the turtles and the whales have a common ancestor is simply artwork. The purpose of the debate tonight, and I know it's going to take you...
Yeah, and I've often said, like, the periodic table is just artwork then. Yes. You know, it's just drawings and numbers on paper. It doesn't mean anything. There's a lot of things like this, you know, the title charts, just lines on paper. The maps that you use to navigate.
The Bible is words on paper. The Bible is just words on paper.
Yeah, but I mean, he's talking about graphics kind of thing. And you know...
Words are just lines.
Well, evolution has had that many papers written about it. Like, he's acting like this is the only thing that we've got, and he's ignoring the, like, I think it's hundreds of thousands of papers written on evolution and how it has always passed every single test that's ever been set to it. So, you know, I don't know why he's sort of going, okay, well, I've got this children's book. What?
An hour to get to it, okay? But where is the evidence that would justify drawing these lines on paper that we all teach the kids? Where is the evidence to say a protozoa turned into a fish and then ultimately a human? Where's the evidence for that? We don't see protozoa doing anything today except make...
Yeah.
Little bit of a segue. How do you think Kent will respond if someone kind of pointed out that little flip note that's beside that's just right underneath that red circle, the protozoa.
Protista.
The protista. That flip note chart that he has right underneath that. If someone pointed out to him that and asked him whether he supports LGBTQ+ because of the colors, how do you think he'll react to that?
Oh, that flip note? Because it's rainbow color?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what that's supposed to say.
Levels of stupid, severe. I can't read the orange one.
I just would have, if I was looking at him, I'd say, "Oh, Ken, congratulations on supporting, human rights," and just point out the fact that and congratulate him that he has the rainbow flag there.
Hell yeah.
Well, he probably thinks the rainbow was stolen from the Christians because they've got this thing of, well, the rainbow was our thing because of the ark, and it was a promise that God wouldn't drown us again, and you guys stole it. And it's like, you know what? It can be two things. It can be two things. They don't have to. Okay.
No, we definitely stole it. Pirates, remember?
Nelson Mandela used it, to describe his country, the Rainbow Nation kind of thing. Like, it can mean all kinds of things. You don't have a monopoly on rainbows, guys.
And baby protozoa. They've even had creatures with a very, very short generation time. Bacteria, single-cell creatures, they get born, grow up, get married, have kids in 8 hours.
They don't get married and they don't have kids.
No, they definitely don't. But yeah, that's what our friend Dr. Jay Bundy, another doctor, this one, a real one this time, worked in the Lenski lab doing that very experiment.
And some of them evolved the ability to digest citric acid instead of their normal food source with no downside. And
tasty citrate.
You have stuff like algae that forms colonies and then becomes completely dependent, making it a multicellular animal, or a multicellular plant, I should say. But, you just ignore all of that because that's inconvenient. That's completely inconvenient.
Well, it's not in a 50-year-old textbook yet.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Full generation. With humans, it's much greater than that. So they've done thousands and thousands of generations, and they can't get it to make anything but a bacteria. But yet you have a line on paper connecting bacteria or protozoa.
I hate when he freaking does that. A bacteria is like an entire class of critter. That's like saying no matter how many times you breed freaking proto squirrels, you'll never get anything but a mammal. Well, yeah, but mammal includes everything from freaking chipmunks to elephants, my guy. Most decidedly different kinds.
Yeah.
The textbooks are teaching the kids all the forms of life on Earth today are descended from a common ancestor. That's not science.
But that says simple molecules from the atmosphere. It doesn't say from rocks. So that just refutes his entire, they came from rocks kind of thing. He never gives his citations either, and it annoys me. Glencoe Biology, 1994. Okay, well, it's only 30 years old. It's not too bad. It's only 30 years old. I mean, that's under the 50 years he usually uses.
I guess he figures as long as it's newer than whatever Ken Ham is using, then he's up to date.
Do you think what's happened here, this actual picture, his slide is, whoever's proofreading his slide has kind of gone, you need to put citations, and they put that little scribble of page 234, 324, and then he's gone back and he's put the actual title of Glencoe Biology 1994, page 324, and forgot to rub out that little scribble that says page 324 at the end.
Probably.
Do you think that's what happened?
Yeah. And I mean, I love it. Like, if you're going to quote mine like he is, or sort of cherry pick like he is, you really need to take out the stuff that refutes you. No trace of those evidence remain, and scientists can't travel back in time to witness what happened. You're supposed to stop reading there. Instead, they turn to scientific methods of observing data, forming hypotheses, making predictions, and contrasting experiments to test their predictions. Yeah, that's the part you don't want people to read.
Yeah, but
that is
Dr.
there.
Mark, he's put a yellow line around where your eyes have to go.
Oh, yeah,
So
that's right.
In his mind, that's already he's rubbed it out already because he's got that yellow line.
That's the God approval line. That's what that is, Dr. Ian. That is the God approval. That's why it's got
Dr. Ken Hovind in yellow as well. See, it's yellow's important to him.
Yeah, there you go. That's approved by God too.
That's propaganda. That's a lie. There's no evidence to support that. And tonight, you're supposed to give all the audience evidence for why we should teach this to the kids. This textbook author admitted, Glencoe is one of the top 4 publishers, or was back in 94, the primitive unicellular organism. Then it says no traces of those events remain.
Why don't you read out the rest of it, Ken? Why don't you read out the rest of it? Because you don't want to. You're basically just, cherry picking.
No.
Poor Stephen Jay Gould, the most misquoted man on the planet. Holy crap.
Right up there with Darwin and his evidence for the eye, where he goes, I fairly confess, so those 2 quotes, misquoting all the time. You're right.
Well, the rarity of transitional forms in the fossil record persists as a trade secret of paleontology. I point out over and over, there is no fossil record. There are fossils by the trillions. None of them talk. None of them have a date stamped on them. And finding a fossil in the dirt and concluding that it has somehow changed into something else, or is halfway between A and B, and is a transition, that's silly. That's not science. All you know from that fossil is it died. And if it looks to you halfway between a fish and an amphibian, wow, it's got short legs, okay? Somebody could just as easily argue, Your Honor, that's something that went extinct. You don't know that creature wasn't always producing babies that had little legs and could walk on land like the coelacanth, okay? You don't know that this fossil is transitional because
what coelacanth walks on land?
And you guys,
I don't know. Does he maybe mean tectonic?
I think he probably does. I don't know.
Have we ever seen a fish walk on land? We have. Skippers. Mud skippers, yeah. They've got a rudimentary lung. And they can walk on land. In fact, they've found mud skippers up trees. Explain that one, Ken.
Absolutely don't get it. Science is what we can observe, study, test, and demonstrate. Science. Knowledge gained from observation and experiments. Nobody sees a cow produce.
No, that is not science. And this is what I sort of point out, that he will cherry pick the worst definitions of stuff from things like child books, like Oxford Kids for his definition kind of thing. I don't know where he got this definition from. That's not too bad compared with his other stuff. But, you know, most of his other definitions are absolutely terrible, taken from kids' books.
Use a non-cow, ever. I live in an area with lots of cow farmers around me, cattle farmers. They'll all tell you, they always bring forth a baby cow. Science, definition of science from the word scientia, meaning knowledge. What do we know?
So that is a archaic use of the word, and this is what he leans on, right? From Wikipedia, from the Latin scientia. So any system of knowledge kind of thing. Like his definitions are terrible. So any system of knowledge that concerns with the physical world and its phenomena and that contains unbiased observations and systematic experimentation, that is evolution. Evolution is concerned with the physical world and its phenomena and entails unbiased observations and systematic experimentation. Evolution falls within that. But he will use this scientia, meaning knowledge kind of thing. And it's a, what's it called? It's a etymological fallacy, because he basically will make the argument, and I've heard him do this before, people cover for him, but he's done this before, saying that science means knowledge, and it doesn't. It doesn't.
Yeah, describing the origin of a word isn't the same as a definition of the word either.
Correct.
That's
he will really lean on, well, from Latin scientia, meaning knowledge. And it's like, doesn't matter what the original definition of the word was under Latin.
The word evolved, Kent.
Yep. Because words will do that.
No, cows make baby cows. We know that. We do not know that we should draw a line on paper connecting a cow to a banana. But you guys want to call this science. Here we got the cow connected to the dinosaur and the sunflower. That's not science. That's something you believe. And even if later it turns out to be true, at this point today, 2024, it's not science. Okay. Knowledge that is concerned with the physical world and the phenomena that entails unbiased observations and experimentation. Okay. Do some experiments. Make a bacteria turn into something other than a bacteria. They've been trying.
Or maybe an algae turn into a multicellular organism. Maybe we could do that. Oh, wait, that's already been done. Maybe
turn into
bacteria.
Dogs.
Yeah. Whoops.
Aurochs turn into cows.
And if a whole bunch of scientists in the laboratory can...
Rocks give birth to all kinds. How about that?
Finally force this to happen. That does not prove it happened in nature over millions of years. Even that would not help your evolution theory. Even if scientists could make life in the laboratory, that wouldn't prove it happened by itself. It would help demonstrate it takes intelligence to make life. That's what it would demonstrate. But even if they can make life, that's not evidence that your religion should be taught as science. Let's see. Science. Scientia, Latin word for knowledge. From the verb seer, which means to know. What do we know?
Yes, this is what he does. It means to know. What do we know? No, that isn't what science means. Just because that is the Latin it came from doesn't mean that is what it means now. And so his apologists will go, oh, but that's not what he really means. He's saying exactly that and has done so for years. And they will try to, he hasn't changed at all. He's been pulled up on this and he's never changed. He just keeps saying the same wrong etymological fallacy over and over and over while people cover for him. It's kind of sad.
Okay, it's used any type of knowledge or expertise. Now, science is knowledge gained from using observations and experiments. I've been saying for 35 years now, there is no scientific evidence for evolution. It's a religious belief and you're welcome to it. But you should call it a religion. That's all it is. Science, the word means knowledge.
Dogmatic assertion.
That says the word origin is knowledge. Right, that means that etymologically it came from the knowledge. But see how he's got this ABC thing up here? This is a children's book. He's literally got it from a children's book. easybiologyclass.com. So he will go to anything that is that he can manipulate, including children's resources. Maybe that's all he can understand is children's resources. I don't know, but
about the second part of that slide where, you're right. He talks about what the word means, but he doesn't talk about applying science. All these definition of applying the science.
Yep.
Do you think he'll actually explain that? He's got the slide there.
Yeah, but he doesn't actually tell you the definition. A definition of science, a systematic enterprise that builds and organizes knowledge in the form of testable explanations and predictions about the world. But he doesn't want to read that out. That's what cherry picking is.
Mm-hmm.
produce cows. We do not know that cows should be connected to every other life form. We don't know that. You believe that. And you might believe it very strongly. And you might convince other people to believe it. I'm sure the Muslims have convinced a lot of people to be Muslims. And the Jehovah's Witnesses have convinced a lot of people to believe like them. Convincing a lot of people to believe like you believe is not science. Hitler convinced 55 million Germans to believe what he was doing.
Wow, Godwin's Law already.
Love it.
I just love that he's got a book of dragons on his shelf. Can I just point that out? Like, you know.
And it just doesn't prove right or wrong. So here we go. Definition of science: a systematic enterprise that builds and organizes knowledge in the testable for explanation and predictions. I predict cows will always produce cows. I predict bacteria will always make baby bacteria. I predict, sunflowers will always make baby sunflowers. Even though we now have 70 varieties of sunflowers, they're still sunflowers. I predict it always has been that way.
Are they?
Because, like, at what point, daisies and black-eyed Susans, and there's a bunch of others. They're all in the same family. And also, when you think of a sunflower, you tend to think of those big honking things with a single head. But there's another kind of sunflower that has multiple branches with smaller heads, but it's still a sunflower. But that sunflower can't reproduce with the big-ass sunflower because they're very different species. They branched off quite some time ago, but they're sunflowers. So if the definition of a kind is the ability to bring forth, and those can't bring forth, then what the fuck?
Our kind, yeah.
Yeah, and where do you put the line? Yes, wherever you put the line, it's arbitrary. But wherever you put the line, a sunflower is not a daisy. So at some point, the ancestor did different things,
Well, are they all part of the sunflower kind? Are they all part of the plant kind? Are they all part of the flower kind? We never get an explanation. Yeah. And at least the people doing what's the thing that baryonics? No, it's
Baryology?
Baryology. They're trying to actually classify things. At least they're trying to classify. Kent just doesn't sort of classify what kinds are and just wings it. And if you ever ask him, well, how does that work in these cases? He just goes, well, they know. I don't have to.
Austin's got it. Baraminology.
Baraminology, yeah. Austin, thank you. Yeah. At least they are actually trying to, yes, it's pseudoscience. I totally agree. But at least they're trying to explain what kinds are. Kent doesn't. He just goes kinds of kinds. If you don't understand it, you don't need to know. Useless.
It always will be that way. That is science, okay? Religions attempt to understand and explain the world, but religion is not considered science. I agree. And evolution is a religion. It's not science. Science.
That's a positive claim.
Yep.
Demonstrate, please.
Or practice. Show me any creature. Show the evidence tonight of why you believe these charts should be considered science. Why do you believe your common ancestor was a protozoa and you have the same ancestor as a sunflower? Is it because you have similar DNA? Your Honor.
That's 10 seconds.
Your Honor. Come on, Ken. Save it for your court date, mate.
That's evidence they got the same designer. Not evidence for ancestry. Go ahead.
All right, Ken. Thank you for that 10 minutes. That's 10 minutes each. Gentlemen, I appreciate the points, the arguments that we can now engage in a discussion. Let's give you the first 20 minutes or so to lead the way. Okay, so again, the question we're dealing with tonight is common descent in the origin of species. And so, Ian, let's throw it over to you and go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for that, Donnie. Chuck my slides back on if you can. And Kent, that was a lot of words, basically, to say nothing. And look, out of interest, your 15 years of teaching science, how is your knowledge of botany? Like, do you know much about plants?
Yeah, I'd say I've eaten quite a few of them, and we raise quite a few of them around here. I'm not the world's expert. But
you should carry one with you everywhere you go, just to make sure that it makes up for the oxygen that you're wasting. All right, so what I was trying to say before, Ken,
Donnie, another ad hominem, but go ahead.
That's not oh, for fuck's sake.
Okay, so what I was trying to say before.
Well, so there's sort of arguments from insult, which is a thing. It's a form of ad hominem, definitely. Because
guilty, Your Honor. Guilty, Your Honor.
Yeah, I really find it. I did dislike when people say it's not an ad hominem, it's an insult, and it's like, yeah, one's a form of the other. It's basically trying to sort of poison the well by sort of saying, hey, here's an insult. You're still making some sort of argument while you're in a debate. So an insult, yes, is an ad hominem. Sorry, it just is.
Sure, but I don't think that was an insult. It's a way of being dismissive, saying Kent said nothing. It's an insulting way of rephrasing it, but it's not saying Kent is wrong because he's wasting oxygen. It's saying everything Kent said is a waste of oxygen.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, it is sort of, no, I get what you mean. He's addressing his argument as being completely vapid. There was nothing to it, and there is nothing to it. He's just basically claimed a definition, claimed his refutation of evolution basically comes down to nah, and I don't believe you when you give me the evidence. That's essentially it. That's the entire thing. It's an argument from incredulity. I don't believe it because it sounds unlikely to me.
Yeah,
it's not an argument.
I was wondering while Kent was going, since he says the same thing every time, why he doesn't just record it and then just push play and go get a coffee or something.
Yeah,
that would be hilarious.
But I think Kent just likes to feel like he's big and important and has the center stage. I mean, Grayson went to his thing, and from his sermons, everybody was just checked out and not even listening. But he was just, I am so important. Woo, narcissist.
Guys, to abiogenesis, I just wanted the audience to understand that when evolution talks about life, we're trying to discover the mechanism of how we change from geochemistry to biochemistry, and we talk about things like rocks and the minerals and all of that kind of in the rocks, maybe with water as a catalyst, maybe with some sort of energy, lightning, or maybe some heat from the ground. However, we don't know yet, but however it works, we are still made from the same chemicals and the same molecules that rocks are made from. So we're trying to discover the processes, whereas you have just told me that the Bible says rocks gave birth to life and the process was magic. So I just wanted to kind of highlight, you will never find an evolutionary textbook that will say that. What you'll try to find is some hypotheses on how that can happen, whereas your position is that it's magic. So I just wanted the audience to understand that. So look, I'm going to talk about Luca now. The way I've kind of structured this was talk about how life started and then talk about Luca. And I'll talk about one of the best evidence for Luca as well. So, okay, next slide. All right. So moving on to common ancestry, and as I said, focusing on Luca. Now, Kent, you have said in the past that all we know from, in fact, you said in your presentation just then that all we know from fossils is that it died and we don't know much about that. Could you maybe just expand a little bit? What do you mean by, all we know about a fossil is that it's died? Because I want to talk about how we know more about the fossil than just that it died. But you always say all we know about a fossil is that it died. Can you maybe expand what you mean by that?
Sure. When you find a fossil, it doesn't talk. There's no date stamped on it. All you can prove is it lived for a short time to get the size it is, and it died. Could you prove it had children from finding the bones? Just a yes or no.
Well, I mean, children maybe not, but definitely parents. Okay, so I'm going to.
That's my point. You cannot prove it had any children. You certainly couldn't prove it had children,
and that they had parents, and that they had parents.
And I bet the parents
are going backwards.
Right now, going backwards, I bet the parents were always the same kind. If you find a fossil clam, I'd be willing to bet $5 the parents were clams. But you want to pretend.
But maybe a little bit different. A little bit different.
You can't know that. Not from the fossil. Well, you can't.
Is Eric an exact copy of you? Is your grandkids an exact copy of Eric? They're all different.
All humans are obviously human. Is because there's variations within the human. That's not evidence we're related to a potato. You want to believe that and teach everybody that we all have a common ancestor with a potato.
And he doesn't want to answer the question. It's like, were you exactly the same as your parents? No. Were humans very different, 5,000 years ago? Yeah, we're a lot shorter. But we change over time.
Additionally, to follow your line of reasoning, Ian, Kent is arguing we have a common ancestor. He's just saying it's God.
Or Adam and Eve.
Well, I was referring to like all life, but Yeah.
Well, that's a good question. If God brought forth after his kind, are we gods?
I mean, we can manipulate the universe, even if only in a somewhat smaller way. Maybe we have to live 900 years for our powers to grow or some shit.
You believe this is science?
Yes, and I'll get there right now.
Okay.
So I do want to explore that comment, and I just want to give a couple examples of how, and using a couple of simple statements, how when you look at that statement, you can infer. Okay, so I'm using the word infer because there are levels of evidence, I should say. We can infer a lot more than just a fossil tells us that we died. So take the first sentence here. The boy lost his ball. What do we know about this? Obviously, we know that a ball was lost because it says so in the statement. But we also know that it's talking about one ball. And we know this because it says ball and not balls. So it's just one. But we also know that the person that lost his ball is a male because it says the boy being obviously male. And we know that it's one male because it says boy, not boys. Right. So that's an example of a statement where you can infer a lot more information into that than just that a ball was lost. So let me give you maybe another statement to kind of clarify this even further. So this statement here is they could not find their balls. So what do we know from this statement? Well, we know that it's more than one ball that was lost. Why? Because you're using the plural of the word.
I actually chose this example just to kind of distract the audience with the obvious. So obviously, I wasn't going to talk about anything sexual here, but it was just kind of 2 or 3 levels down to kind of talk about the kind of like seed in people's head thinking, oh, is Ian going to go this way in a sexual way? Because I keep on saying the word balls. I didn't do it at all. It was actually just done just to kind of maybe tease the audience a little.
I suspected that might be like a low key strategy because so many people, and not to disparage Donnie's fine audience, I'm sure. Doki Doki, for example, wonderful person, very kind.
Yeah, but, really nice. Yeah.
Yeah. But a lot of people, that first level of perception is always going to go through that, middle school humor filter, and they're like waiting for the punchline.
Yep, that's what I thought too. What else do we know? We know that there's more than one person.
Sorry, Dr. Ian?
No, I just said, that's exactly why I use this as an example. I didn't use it, I didn't go there, but I put it out there just because I thought the audience would think that's where I'm going.
And you know what? He looks really irritated now that you mention it. He looks really, really irritated.
That lost their balls. And how do we know that? Because they're using the plural of the word they, and not just he or him or her or whatnot. So we know it's more than one person. But what we don't know here, Kent, that we knew from the first statement is we don't know the gender of these people. It doesn't say whether it's male or female, but we do know that it's several balls that were lost by several people. So this is where our 2 simple examples on statements where we can infer a lot more information just by reading into it. And that's what I'm trying to get at with the fossils. We know that a fossil is not just that it died. We know it had parents. We know from the environment where that fossil is fossilized what the environment looks like. So if it's fossilized in sedimentary rocks, deep ocean, we know it's probably living in the ocean. It's very unlikely a land animal living in the mountain suddenly appeared in an environment that was characterized by deep ocean environment. So we know a lot of stuff just from the fossils. So do you agree with this so far? Like, do you agree, Kent, that when you look at a statement, and just even maybe focus on this example if you don't want to talk about fossils, that we can infer a lot more information than just that a boy has lost his ball or a ball was lost? Can we infer several bits of information from a simple statement? So just a straightforward question to you, Kent.
Yes, and you need to carry a plant with you too. You just used a whole lot of oxygen up that said absolutely nothing. I said from a fossil you cannot.
Well, that's innovative. I love it when people come up with something original of their own, Dr. Mark.
Yeah.
Just love it. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's super creative.
It's only wrong when you do it, Dr. Ian. This is what you've got. I mean, Dr. Amber knows that when Dr. Kent Hovind does it, it's absolutely, fine to do that.
When God say something, it's true.
I bet you $10 Donnie doesn't say a damn thing about
it. Can you?
Yes or no? I'm not rich enough to take that bet.
Can we? But you.
Yeah, no, he's just laughing.
You said no. You said all we know about that. All we know. All right, that is not all we know. Okay, that's my point. This sentence, these 2 sentences here, is more than just all we know. A ball was lost. That's my point. Ken.
Okay, I will concede. We know that this creature had parents. Now, back to my question. Do you know it had children?
I've already conceded, but we know a lot more. My point was we know a lot more than it died. That was my entire point. I've used a couple examples to highlight how you can infer more information than just that one point. So let me kind of continue on anyway, because I'm glad we agree. I only kind of want you to stop using that because I'm hoping that you understand it's more that's more than all we know, which is kind of what the point I was trying to make. Okay. Now to kind of what I think is the best evidence for Luca or evolution. So keeping in mind, Kent, that you've agreed that Genesis should be taken literally and that it is the perfect translation of God. So let's read Genesis 1:24 and 1:25. So Genesis 1:24 clearly states that not only did the rocks give birth to living creature, but if you kind of look at it carefully in Genesis 1:25 also, is that the rocks gave birth to one kind of living creature. So, and God said, let the earth bring forth the living creature, singular, after his kind, singular his, singular kind. To me, this is exactly what evolution is saying. Evolution is saying that abiogenesis happened. There was one last universal common ancestor, and from that, we evolved all the extant species that we have today. The Bible, to me, confirms this. I'm literally reading the Bible as it's written, and I'm looking at this and I'm saying, well, look,
So in Genesis 1:24, God says, rocks gave birth to a living creature after his kind, one kind, so the one Luca. And then he reaffirms it again in Genesis 1:25. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind. This is all singular pronouns. It's one kind. This is Luca. I mean, it's plain as day written here in your Bible. I'm using this as evolution of evidence for evolution. Prove me wrong, Ken. What am I not reading literally in this Bible that you said that I should be reading literally? What am I not understanding from reading this literally?
Okay, first of all, it does not say the rocks gave birth. It says
bring forth. Let's bring forth.
Let that. I
doesn't
can bring
answer
forth
the
the milk out of my
question.
refrigerator. Okay,
but you told me bring forth me.
Yeah, he doesn't answer the question, and he already said you confirmed with him. Bring forth meant to give birth in earlier. Yep. You absolutely confirmed that with him.
And that was the previous slide, the whole thing around. So I try to distract him by saying, well, the reason why I'm giving these two examples is because I don't like your evidence. I don't like it when you say all we know about are fossils. But the whole point about those two examples is to highlight that, well, if we read the KJV version, the perfect translation of the Bible in English, and it's perfect, it's a perfect word of God, then we've got to read that when it says his, or when it says living creature, it means singular. Unless you're saying that there's a translation error, unless you're saying it's not perfect, unless you're saying that grammatically incorrect, or unless you concede on these points, and therefore we can have a discussion around, well, if these parts of the Bible are not correct, then what other parts of the Bible are actually not correct that you're reading into? Right. So he didn't go there, because I could have argued that point as well. But what I'm saying is, you said to read it literally, and I'm reading literally, and I'm reading the English as perfect as you're saying that it's written. It says to me that not only did the earth bring forth the living creature after his kind, which to me means the earth or rocks gave birth to a living creature, which will probably be the name of the kind, and it's one kind, because it's not creatures, it's creature, and it's not their or plural version. It's his kind. It's one word. And my two examples before was to kind of highlight his, they, them, her, that kind of stuff. So that was the whole point about all that kind of discussion before. To give birth. When you say a dog brings forth another dog, what a dog? What does that mean? Does that not mean give birth?
In the case of the dog, it does. And me bringing the milk out of the refrigerator, I don't give birth to the milk. No, I think God can take the earth and make it come out of the earth. Different kinds of animals. Using God. That's what you don't want to
magic. God is
you got the magic. You think the dirt did it by itself.
You're trying to investigate how it happens. You're satisfied with magic. That's all I want to get at. You're saying God used magic.
You said earlier you're trying to discover the mechanism for how it happened. Has it ever considered? Have you ever thought about maybe it didn't happen and there is no mechanism because it didn't happen?
That's not an adequate answer, and scientists do not accept magic as an answer, and we will continuously try to find what the answer is. But you are satisfied with God being the answer. In other words, you are satisfied when you don't know something that is magic. Scientists are not satisfied with that as an answer.
Science is what we know. We do. I've said I believe God did it. I've said mine's a religion.
How?
I don't know, but I don't need to know. I admit it's a religion. Why don't you don't
know? Oh dear. It's not a religion, because we're actually proposing mechanisms. It's how it happened that we test and do experiments on. Like, just wow. Wow.
And he never.
I love this.
He never answers.
No, of course he doesn't.
About Luca, he always fixates on this definition of bring forth. That's all. That's his entire response.
Yeah.
How the rocks gave birth became alive without either.
We don't know how today. That doesn't mean we don't know how later, and that doesn't mean that we should stop trying to find out how.
Until then, you can keep trying to find out how. Keep trying, but until then, it's not science. It's a religion, Ian. You believe
it. The process of learning how is science.
I love learning things. I agree. I love learning things. But see,
he agrees. Just quickly, Lord of Shenaniganery for $5. Kent does demonstrate great proof of humans descending from rocks, or at least blocks, in this and every debate. Has anyone told him so? I bet a great many people have sort of pointed as Kent as a refutation of evolution, because he never actually changes or learns anything.
And also, he is a blockhead.
And blockhead, yeah. And the fact that his son is a blockhead too. There you go.
Oh my goodness, his son is just. So as I mentioned at the top of the show, immediately before this, I was over on Skeptic Haven. debunking the Trump 2024 movie. One of the producers on that Christian nationalist piece of utter garbage is Eric fucking Hovind. That guy, he is causing so much damage, as much as he possibly can. Just a mini rant, that's all. Were there blockheads on Gumby, Little Wolf? I don't Gumby
know.
was a long time ago.
Until half the country does not believe in your stupid evolution religion. If you wish to teach it or believe it, that's fine.
It's more like 40%, but even that's really disturbing. But go elsewhere in the world, Kent, where the education system isn't so bad, and you will actually find that the creationists they're in the tiny minorities. Like Australia, I think it's about 10% over here are young Earth creationists, which is still quite high.
I thought it was actually quite. I don't know. I think I had looked at this before, just in preparation for a rebuttal I thought Kent would made, and I came up with a number of less than 1%. That
is it that low?
It was some poll that was done about 10 years ago. It was around the 1% mark.
Oh, okay. Is it that low? Wow. Okay. No, that's good.
But
that's
you know, it makes sense. So we've got about, I think, what is it, the 2022 census? It was close to 40% of Aussies are atheists.
Yeah.
So if you've pretty much wiped out almost half the population that way.
And maybe I'm thinking of general creationism kind of thing, not young Earth. That could be what I'm thinking of.
Well, yeah, because you've got 60% obviously, and most of them are Catholics. I think most Christians in Australia are Catholics. So of that 60%, majority of Catholics, and Catholics mostly accept evolution.
No, it's only about 43% are Christians anymore. Like they've actually stopped being majority. And I think
what's the biggest
nuns are about 41. Yeah, but the biggest one definitely is Catholics. There's no doubt about that.
Yep. So I've always thought young Earth creation was an American problem. Like all my mates in Europe, they've never heard of this concept of young Earth. It seems to be only an American problem. Yeah.
They're trying to export it as quick as they can. But yeah, I believe it was an American Baptist who made the modern version of it. And Ken Ham immediately saw the possibilities for grifting. So, you know.
Yeah.
We sent him to you guys. We figured, well, we don't need him here. Americans will love him.
He figured Americans would be easier marks, and he wasn't wrong.
He wasn't wrong. Yeah.
The guy should admit, at this point today in 2024, we don't know. We could not prove it happened. We can't make it happen. We don't know for sure this is how it happened.
You need to stop using things like half the country or paying the taxes, because that's an American thing. I'm not American. None of that sounded relevant to me. And the people that believe in evolution in my country, Australia, is much larger in America. So just saying what happens in America is not the same as what happens in Australia.
Yeah. And so, really, you go to Europe and nobody believes in young Earth creationism. Like nobody. And the amount of scientists that believe in young Earth creationism is tiny, like 1%. Just tiny.
1%.
Yeah, I think they came up, but there was more people more scientists by the name of John or something Stephen. Yeah, that support evolution than all of the young Earth creationist scientists out there. All of them. Like it's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Oh. In Russia, the percentage of creationists is 34%.
Yeah, but that's not young Earth. Like creationism can include old Earth creationism.
Okay.
God created the Earth, billions of years ago, kind of thing. So it doesn't include
the Hugh Ross kind. Yeah.
I'm okay. We'll get my material translated into Australian. Okay. No, I did not. The Bible does not say. You asked, what are you reading?
Please don't. But here's the thing. Like most Australians, it's not really, like, it's not something that we would accept. We kind of really, we really like the sciences over here. It's sort of this, why would we believe this absolute nonsense? I don't know. It's just really weird. I don't understand how America got itself in this predicament. it seems wild to me, just wild. I don't know. Maybe Dr. Ember can.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
It has to do with political nonsense, actually. We spent the years after the Civil War until the Korean War building up our public education. And then after the Korean War, we started trying to dismantle our public education. Possibly and primarily because of integration. As the government tried to force Black people into white schools, there started to be a movement among the more religious groups to create private schools, not for better education, but so their children wouldn't have to go to school with brown people. And so they started trying to take apart the public education system as a means for justifying private education and to make homeschool a viable thing again. And one of the ways they were able to push towards that end was to start promulgating this kind of nonsense. It's not just this particular nonsense. There's a lot of different nonsenses, but they all draw up.
Yeah, that 100% makes sense, because I think most of the young Earth Christians that I've interacted with, at least in YouTube, so I'd say, probably a very skewed niche kind of sample, but I reckon the majority of them, 90% plus, have been homeschooled. So I wonder if there is a link between the homeschool, the high percentage of homeschooled yeks in America, and the fact that they believe in young Earth creationism. I mean, if you got
and then you get they're taught in homeschool.
Yeah, if your
and you
parents
get charter schools coming through now, which have no curriculum that they have to teach, and that's scary as well.
Yeah, it's pretty trippy. I mean, AIG, a huge part of their income is homeschool curriculum. PragerU's been getting into that field as well. It's really profitable to indoctrinate children in blatant falsehoods where they'll grow up and send you 10% of their money for life.
I know this isn't kind of pertinent to the discussion today, but at some stage I'd be interested to kind of understand, where are the standards? Like, I know there is a very small percentage of Aussies that are homeschooled, but they need to be homeschooled through approved material.
Yes.
So yeah, I just like, who approves the material? Like, isn't there some sort of standard? I would have thought that if you're going to allow
sort of. It varies from state to state.
Right. That's what you've got to remember. So the thing about Australia is we have the Commonwealth, right? Which is the Commonwealth was created under the monarchy, but really the Commonwealth represents all of the people together. It's basically Commonwealth, like it is the people all together. America has a lot less of that, and they're more focused on state stuff. So it doesn't, it has a federal government, but the things that we would look to the federal government to do don't get into the states. The states do sort of what they want. And, like Trump is doing, he's giving more and more power to the states to do whatever they want. So if they want to set regulations for homeschooling, they do so. Whereas the Department of Education in Australia is a federal department, like it's federal. And, it doesn't just go, well, you can teach whatever you want in your state. And a lot of Americans would see that as problematic, taking away their freedom, their states' rights kind of thing. Whereas in Australia, it's like, no, the Commonwealth should act in the best interests of all Australians. Australia is a lot more collectivist than America. That's the one thing I've noticed talking with all of my American friends. America is very individualist, sort of, what's the best for me? I want, to have the best life, and I want this and that. Whereas Australia, it's sort of, for all Australians. We really are very collectivist in comparison.
Yeah, and sadly, our system is highly susceptible to corruption. Like, even in states where there is oversight as to what can go into homeschool curriculum, it's absolutely acceptable, apparently, since no one's been prosecuted for it, for, say, PragerU to waltz in and literally bribe the officials, like just hand them suitcases of money and get a rubber stamp on their application.
And they call it lobbying. It's not bribery, it's just lobbying, which is just bribery with extra steps, really.
Yeah.
But, that's and I mean, it sort of is, I really think that the gun debate is really one of the things that, you know, I really like the idea that, you know, we had this horrible things happen and the government just stepped in and said, no, we're not going to trust you with firearms anymore. Bad Australians, you're going to have them, you know, you've got to turn them in or get a registration and licensing for them. No more of this stuff. I like that because, you know, they absolutely did what was required to make us safe. But America doesn't do that. It's like, well, we can't take away the rights of people. You know, it'd be bad if we took these rights away from them.
It's so wild how we get about rights too. Like, first of all, nobody gives a fuck about responsibilities, the other side of the coin. Right. But the second is the way that we cherry pick our own legal documents the same way these guys cherry pick from their holy book. Like, they get all, Second Amendment, Second Amendment. The Second Amendment guarantees you the right to be part of the militia. You can go join the militia and have all the firearms you want. What do you mean? Like, it clearly says that, but they only pick out the first sentence. The right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Drives me bonkers.
And I think it's also American exceptionalism is a problem as well. Like, us Australians, we're very aware of how big idiots we can be. Like, we're very aware that we can all be idiots. Like, you know, I've done idiotic things. Dr. Ian's done idiotic things. Everybody does idiotic things, and go, okay, well, let's you know, balance our laws for complete idiots, because really that's what we are. Where Americans go, well, we can do no wrong. It's like, dude, no. Have you met the average person on the street? Have you thought about yourself in your worst times, kind of thing? You're an idiot. You really can't be trusted with, you know, this thing.
I understand that most adults run on hormones.
Yeah. Anyway, I was just gonna say, because we're sort of halfway through, and I think this will be 2 hours, 4 hours if we keep going. So, did you want to continue the rest on your channel, Dr. Ember?
Oh, we can if you want.
Yeah. I don't want to be too long, and I know it's going to be 4 hours if we continue this. Did you want to come to the next one, Dr. Ian?
I would love to. Really enjoy myself. No. Really, if it's at the right time and stuff, definitely enjoy myself.
Same time, exactly the same time.
4 arguments I presented, and we've gone to the first 2, and it was very, I guess, theologically based. It was around using the Bible to support what I wanted, and it was really done to kind of get Kent really upset, you know, kind of. But he didn't answer this one anyway. The next 2 is more genetics based. So I talk about chromosome fusion 2 as an example, but in a slightly different way than what like I keep on saying, more science-minded people like you, Mark, Ember, would kind of maybe discuss it. I go less on the science and more around, well, if you believe in this, why don't you believe in this? So it's more dumbed down version, but using chromosome fusion as an example of that dumbed down version of the argument. And then I talk about ERVs and ALU elements and line elements and stuff. So the next 2 is more genetic based, but the first 2 is more theological. And it's you didn't answer the theological part at all.
No, he didn't. And I can tell that he's getting really annoyed because you're not leaning into his usual nonsense. And I talk about this a lot, how he puts out these red herrings, and I call it the rabbit. He'll try to make you mad. But like, I know your style, Ian. You're not going to be made mad by, you know, him saying, oh, it's a religion and science is knowledge and all of these just bait. Yeah, that's the one. The big fat red herring where he's basically just trying to make you go down these lines of questioning. You're just sticking to your own lines, which I love. I absolutely love. You know, you're not bothered at all, and that's probably because you're not taking him seriously at all. I don't know who would take him seriously, but
no one does. Well,
no one does. Like, someone in the chat was,
the IRS does.
Someone in the chat are asking, like, why do you focus on his arguments, kind of thing? And it's like, because he's a lol cow. It really is funny to see him fail so badly. Like, it's just, it's really bad. Like, you know, he's not. You know, I guess next week we'll be going into ERVs and the actual genetic evidence for evolution, and he won't go into that. He won't. He'll just make straw men of the whole thing. So it's funny to see how much somebody can take a very serious subject that is a scientific discipline with that's foundational to biology and foundational to medicine, and just make it such a bad straw man out of it, just a total misrepresentation out of it, which is what he does. It's what he does. Like, do you actually believe that the reason why we think things are related is because of lines on paper? Do you really think so? Because if you do, I've got bad news for you. Just saying.
You kind of do that in religion, though. Like,
well,
you know,
yeah,
when you start a family, you get married, and you know you're married because you get a marriage certificate. So you are now a family. You are now related because of lines on paper.
Well, there you go.
I think in one of the arguments, he actually said something stupid. I think I called him out and I said, so is that what you actually believe? It wasn't quite the lines of paper. It was something similar. I can't remember what it is, but I'm sure we'll get there. Hey, I know we're kind of closing out this discussion, but Mark, this as a debate dissection, it would be great for me as obviously a beginner. When I've only done several of these debates. I haven't done anywhere near as many debates as you, Dr. Mark, and all these discussions that you have, Dr. Ember, as well. Maybe if you, Dr. Mark, and Dr. Ember can maybe give me some critique, or maybe even some pointers or things on how I can improve these debates kind of going forward. So very very much around my performances and how badly I did and how I could fix that, and also maybe things I did well and maybe how I can do more of. So just some feedback from, because I know you're quite experienced in this, Dr. Mark.
Well, it depends on what you're looking to do, right? So like often I've said, hey, I give my perspective as in my debate style, and that doesn't mean it's the best thing. Like if you're looking to absolutely make Hovind annoyed in the debate, which is what some people go in against Hovind to do, I probably couldn't give you any advice. I think that maybe the sort of things that you were going to was a bit too long for the audience. Like we sort of understand what you're saying beforehand. You don't have to dwell so much on the ball thing kind of thing. But if your intention is to like explain things to the audience, it maybe was a bit too long. If your intention is to annoy Hovind, don't change a thing, because that was annoying the crap out of him. Like I could tell he was actually annoyed. So it all depends on what you're after, what you're trying to get across, kind of thing. I don't have a lot of criticisms. It's very small. Sort of, I love that you've used the Bible. I love that you're taking notes. I love that you're using presentations. I don't have a lot to criticize you on, Ian. Honestly, mate.
Okay, well, that's honestly from you, Dr. Mike. That's definitely high praise.
Sorry, Dr. Ian. Yeah, sorry, Dr. Ian. I have to use it.
Yeah. Similarly, I point out the stuff I love. It's great. There's not a lot to dislike. Like I could suggest perhaps that when you have 10 minutes, take full advantage, weaponize that shit. But on the flip side, the way you're using what time you do take strategically, it lends more weight to what you're doing. Like, if you don't need that 10 minutes, then, just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you have to,
I think maybe that you might have let Hovind talk too much during your time. I know that you said it didn't bother you and he could interrupt you and stuff like that. I just think that maybe, and I'm not saying this for sure, I'm just thinking maybe it would have been better to say, hey, what's the answer to this question? And when he says some random stuff, you go, okay, you haven't answered, and then move on to the next question. Okay, you haven't answered that either. Move on to the next one. Oh, you haven't answered that either. And don't let him have time to, and go back to it. Just say, no, you didn't answer. That's your answer. You have no
And you're good at that, Dr. Mark. So I've definitely.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Ian. That's yeah. But I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't, because he certainly was, really annoyed by what you were doing. But I mean, I'm generally in there to provide the audience with some sort of alternative that is supported by science and has tons of evidence behind it. But not everybody is like that. Dr. J. Bundy went in there just to confuse and annoy Hovind as well, and he had a great time doing that, because he absolutely did confuse the hell out of him, which was hilarious, quite frankly. A lot of atheists didn't like that debate. I found it was hilarious, because I knew what he was trying to do and did it very effectively.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I've said, I've enjoyed all your debates so far. You come up with very creative ways to approach these things, and they're super enjoyable, and that's true for this one too. I am having a blast.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
High praise indeed. High praise. And so I've been asking Donnie to set me up with another debate. but possibly not with Kent, unless there's a really good reason as to why.
That's fair.
I've asked Donnie. I've given him a list of some people I would really like to debate, and one of them is Sam from Redefined Living. So Donnie's quite excited about that. He reckons it'll be good, but he needs to convince
that would
Sam.
be awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
How
I
are you
think,
on pre-sub? Because Sam's thing is pre-sub.
Yep. No, and so my view is get me in the debate with him. I don't care what the topic is. We can make whatever I say vaguely fit whatever topic it is, right? But it'll be still it will be on my terms. I still argue what I want to argue, but I'll make it fit whatever topic that you've kind of arbitrarily put it. It was Donnie that kind of suggested, a good topic could be common descent. I said, yeah, let's do that. And you can see it's kind of related to common descent. It's not going to be really related to it, but I can make it fit however it fits. The only reason why I said Sam was, well, frankly, and if you're listening, Sam, I don't like you, and the debate that I'm going to have with Sam is going to be exactly the same tone, maybe even worse, than what I'm having with Kent, right? Whereas if you go look at my previous debates
sure
with
you'll
T-Rock
be
stuff, I've got nothing against. But wow, yes, I will be professionally mean. So you've seen my debate with T-Rock. I don't actually mind the guy. I think he's 100% wrong, but I think he genuinely believes what he believes, right? So I've got respect for him for that, right? So I'm more professional discussing that or having a debate with him than I am with Ken or even with Sam. So cross fingers, guys. If we get one with Sam, I think that would be quite fun.
Nice. Yeah, no, I'm all in favor of that. I would definitely watch that. I have pinned Ian's channel, so go and check him out. Give him some support because he does some amazing debates. He definitely has some interesting ways, and the Hawaiian shirts are always hilarious. I really love your debates when I do see them. But so we're going to wrap it up. Dr. Ember, what do you have coming up? What's on the cards for you?
Oh goodness, there's so much stuff. There's so much stuff.
Well, we have an interview next week because I was an idiot and it was supposed to be this week, and I totally forgot about it. Totally my fault, and I so apologize. I've been all over the place the last week, kind of thing. So I really do apologize. But
it's been a rough week, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that'll be Friday. My Friday. What did we say? 8 o'clock. I think we're still 12 hours apart, so it's 8 for both of us.
Yes, it's 8 a.m. my time. Yeah, and 8 p.m. Eastern time. That will be Friday night. I want to say.
Yeah, Eastern Friday time? Night for me.
Yeah.
Yep. And then Saturday, of course, part 2 of this will be over at my place. And tomorrow, Sunday, I do interviews at my place on Sundays. I've got the Apostate Sisters, some up-and-coming cult escapists. They're coming over for Atheist Live's interview. That they are such great people. If you haven't heard of them, come over and meet them. I don't even care if you don't subscribe to my channel, because you need to know about them to subscribe to theirs. That's how cool they are. Yeah, they have a lot to say, and it's very amusing, but also very moving. So yeah, it should be a good one. And also on yet another channel, the Transpositions, I do good news on Transpositions Weekly. That is Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, which unfortunately is the same time as Nick from In Time Does Downtime, so I don't get to catch Downtime as much anymore. But the good news is there are replays. Once a live is done, you can just watch it as a VOD, so you can catch both shows. Yeah. And there's other stuff too. Find all my links on my website, betterthanember.com, because there's too many channels to go through all of them, so I just put them up there like a link tree.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Ems. Where's your link tree? Where's your link tree? Do you have your link tree? You can shoot into chat. Is that a thing?
Yeah, I probably can. Like I said, it's just the website. Same as my original channel name is betterthanember.com, and there's more than just my links on there. By the way, I've got a list of all the skeptical creators that people might not have heard of.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, there's also links for other stuff too, like my genetics research, a list of trans and GSM creators, a list of research pertaining to trans science, and also link to my Patreon if you feel so inclined to support all the stuff that I'm. Oh, you beat me to it with the link. I was digging around getting to it. Yeah,
I'm quick.
That's right.
That's what she said.
So yeah. Like I was saying, I do too much stuff to keep track of all of it. That's why I put that central location up there.
Fantastic. Ian, what do you have anything coming up, Dr. Ian?
Not really. I've got a so some of you might have seen that I did a discussion, I suppose. So basically with Donnie, he wanted to have a go at kind of maybe answering some of the points that I think he felt maybe Ken didn't answer as well. So we had a couple 2.5-hour discussion just on the chromosome fusion part, and I think that
so everything.
No, just on the chromosome fusion. We haven't got there yet. That's a third argument. So we spent 2.5 hours there.
Well, when you said just points that Kent didn't answer very well, I'm like, well, that's everything.
Oh no, yes, yes.
No, that is literally everything. Like he never answers anything well. No, sorry, go ahead.
You're right. So yeah, so we recorded that. I think that went live, and I put a copy of that. I mirrored it on my channel.
Good stuff.
A few days ago. But he wants to have a second part of that where we kind of go through. I think we finish off the chromosome fusion. We didn't quite finish that off, and go through ERVs and all the other. The fourth part of the argument, the more genetic lines of argument there. So I think we've tentatively scheduled that as a recording session tomorrow. So hopefully that will probably go live in the next few days after that, and I'll put that on my channel once it goes live as well. Mirror it.
Cool. All right, so head over and check out Ian Chen Official, which is pinned on the top of the chat. So yeah, definitely check it out and give Ian some love, Dr. Ian some love, because Dr. Ian needs all the love. But yeah, no, I love it, Ian, and I've really enjoyed myself. So don't forget to like, subscribe, hit all the buttons. It really helps me out, and let's get a community going. This has been a lolcow special. It's been hilarious. We love to do it. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me, everybody. And I will see you next week over at Dr. Ember's channel, where we will be doing the debate review for part 2 that way. Yep. So yeah, thank you, everybody. I will see you next week. Don't forget, be kind to yourself, be kind to each other, and don't believe fake doctors on the internet.
Just except saying. Dr. Mark and Dr. Ember. Believe them.
Maybe not.